Everyone. Good afternoon. Fine. Let's get the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Mayor Teresa Gutierrez Giron. Councilor David G. Romero.
Here.
Councilor Barbara Casey.
Here.
Councilor Vincent Howell.
Here.
Councilor David A. Ulibarri Jr.
Here.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. We do have a quorum.
Thank you. Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Councilor Ulibarri, can you give us a moment of silence, please?
A moment of silence for two of our residents that passed away a couple of weeks ago, Rodan Crispin and Carlo. He was a teacher of he was a basketball player, baseball player. He teach at West Las Vegas. Keep their families in mind. Pray for him.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda.
What say we?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I move that we approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Councilor Romero.
Yes.
Councilor Howell.
Yes.
Councilor Ulibarri Jr.
Yes.
Councilor Casey.
Yes.
I have a motion by Councilor Casey and a second by Councilor Ulibarri Jr. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Ms. Manager, what we have next? What do we have next?
We have presentation discussion items, and the first item is the discussion of water billing issues with a detailed explanation of procedures from meter reading to actual billing to being reviewed and audited regularly for accuracy. Mayor Pro Tem, councilors, we have Ms. Maria Gilberry and we have Jody Marquez to present.
Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem, councilors, Madam Manager. As the manager introduced us, I'm Maria Gilberry, the Utilities Director, and this is Jody Marquez, the Customer Service Manager. And we are going to go over a presentation that discusses the process that we have for our billing, which starts out with meter reading and goes all the way up through the billing and even past the billing into how we address customers' issues and concerns. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them as we go through. I'd not necessarily wait till the end. The agenda did call for detailed. I'm making it as detailed as possible without making this a 4-hour presentation, but we do have a great amount of detail with us to be able to answer any specific questions you may have. Okay, so we are going to cover collecting data, the quality assurances processes that we have for that billing data, reporting on the billing data, and again, how we address customers' concerns and questions. So the first step is we have a position called consumption clerk. The consumption clerk has numerous responsibilities, but she actually has the first step in this billing process, and that's where she loads the routes. She initiates the process when we're going to start collecting data for a cycle, and there are 4 cycles, I believe, correct? There are 4 cycles. And even though there are 4 cycles, we still take a meter read for every meter every week. That way we keep the most updated information. So we're not just reading only cycle 1. The first week we'll read cycle 1 through 4. The second week we'll read cycles 1 through 4. And then the third and the fourth. Every week all cycles are read. Now only that particular cycle for that week is then the process starts for billing. So that allows us to have the most up-to-date information for leak reasons, for customer concerns. We don't necessarily wait till their week to take the data. So approximately, yes, Councilor.
On the meter reading now, all the reading goes into the system at the city?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we'll get into that, and we do have a Tyler system that all the data is uploaded into and retained. We have approximately 11,656 meters that are read every week. Those are water, gas, and reclaimed water. We do cover the areas for Las Vegas, but in addition to that, we have meters in Watrous, Wagon Mound, and in Montezuma. So the automated meter reading process includes our collections personnel, which is the field customer service supervisor and then we also have a customer service rep 3 and a customer service rep 2. So we have 3 personnel that are involved on the field customer service side with collecting the data. The devices that are used to collect the data are a laptop with an antenna. We can drive around town. We'll drive up and down every road and drive up and down every alley every week and download that data into the laptop. In addition to laptops, we have handheld devices that we can collect data on. And then the third alternative for collecting data is the traditional or the old-fashioned eyeballs. If the laptop and the handheld device are not being able to collect the data, then we do visual reads. So again, we do drive up and down every road, every alley, collecting the transmitted data. And then the data is exported to a flash drive and provided back to the consumption clerk that I spoke about earlier. And she uploads the data into the computer system to be able to store the data and evaluate and assess the data. It is possible to get a misread. We can get a misread due to a lack of an AMR. AMR is on every single residential, but we do not have the automated meter reading on every commercial. It is possible that an antenna gets blocked. And that would be another reason why we wouldn't get the data for that round. And then it's possible for a register to fail. This is a register. It has an antenna off of it. We receive the transmission from the register. So if this fails, it's possible we won't get any data. The way we address each... Yes, Counselor?
Okay, just to, you answered one of the questions that a lot of my constituents have had is that the meter lid doesn't look like it's been opened. So
correct.
Now in that
you'll notice a black disc with a silver middle disc on all on most meter lids. That's the transmitter. It's actually hooked up to this meter. We don't like to, especially in the wintertime, we don't want to open meter lids because that can allow for intrusion of extremely cold air and actually cause issues with the meter.
So when you say blocked, that the signal's blocked?
A vehicle on top, we've had vehicles parked directly on top of them, trash cans, trash, couches. People have put things in place of it. It doesn't stop the process, it just means we didn't get a read for that house, but we are notified, and I'll talk about how we get notified that a particular home was not read. Again, lack of AMR, a blocked antenna, or a failed register. And the quick thing I'd like to say about a failed register is if we took a read last month, and we try and take a read this month, and the register has failed, I do not know how much that customer has used. The customer is not going to be charged because we don't know how much to charge them, so we don't charge them for any of the water. What we'll do is we'll replace that register, and we'll start with that new register. So we never guess, we don't assume, we don't even estimate. They'll get their base charge, and then we'll go to the next month and fix the register when we're notified. And again, since we check these every week, we do get notified pretty rapidly when if and when a register fails, which doesn't happen very often with the, like I said, 11,000 meters that we have. So if we need to, we'll go back out and we'll read them manually. We'll first make another attempt. Maybe if it was blocked by a vehicle, they'll make another attempt to walk by and try and get the signal. If they still can't get the signal at that point, then they'll open up the meter can, presuming it's safe to do so, and get a visual read and then be able to enter the visual read in. And then they take the handheld device back to the clerk that I mentioned before. She'll upload that data and it'll combine with the previously collected data. It's possible sometimes that data doesn't coincide. Something has happened, and if data does not coincide, we get a report. And that's the data from the laptop, the handhelds, and the manual. If data does not coincide, then we'll do another reread to see if we can find out why the numbers aren't coinciding. Was it the wrong meter? Was a number entered when they had to go to the manual, which happens very rarely? Did they enter 2 numbers crossed? And then we'll address it at that time. Approximately 100 out of every 11,000 meters read do we have to go back to reread. That is less than 1% of the meters that are read do we have to go back and read that week, whether it's blocked or whether we have to do a manual read. So less than 1% has to be reread. So now we're talking about uploading into the system, as you were asking, Counselor. Consumption clerk then uploads the data or downloads the data, immediately saves it, and then backs it up. That way we don't lose the data. Then handheld devices, let me see, download, saves the data back, saves the data from the USB that we provided or the handheld device when we had to do the reread for the billing process to make sure that we have all that data for that cycle and for that route. An Error 55 report can be generated. That's when we get non-billable data. That means that we don't have anything that we can bill the customer on. For instance, a failed register. So that Error 55 report is generated. It is provided to the customer service manager. She'll take a look at it and then make determinations on do these need to be work orders that need to go back out, so maybe the register needs to be replaced, or maybe there's a reason why there was an Error 55. Another report that's generated is what we're called the review report. That's for abnormal consumption, idle service consumption, no reads, the start read, the finished read are not reading properly or the same. The start read is higher than the end read, or there's zero consumption. All of these trigger a report, and those all go in the report, and those are also generated. Those also generate work orders, and we send the staff that I mentioned, the 3 employees, back out to try and determine what the cause is for any one of these issues or concerns. An abnormal consumption is a change in how your normal consumption would be for the last 12 months, but it has to be unique. For instance, if every month you're between 4,000 and 5,000 gallons, and then 1 month in that 12-month period you're at 10, 15, or 20,000, that's abnormal consumption. If in June and July you spike by a couple thousand, and then June and July of the next year you spike by a couple thousand, the computer's going to say, no, that happened last year, it's not abnormal. It could still be, but the computer's not going to say that's abnormal because there's a history. As long as there's a history, the computer won't recognize it. But staff can recognize it in their reviews, and then customers obviously will, if they have a concern, they'll come to us for it. Each account is actually also reviewed by comparison. They'll compare this month's read, and this is one of the customer service manager's jobs. She'll compare this month's read to last month's read and this month last year to see if there's an exceptional difference. Again, 1,000 gallons is not an exceptional difference. 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 gallons is an exceptional difference. Work orders for the customer service field crews are then generated, as I said, from the 2 reports, and then they'll go out and they'll try and assess why they got these errors or what might be going on. When we do have abnormal consumption, the customers are notified by a letter that we have found what we believe may be abnormal consumption. And then once all these work orders are completed, there's documentation placed on those work orders, whatever the field customer service personnel found, and that's always provided back to the clerk for recording and for placing in the customer's file. Many times we do get customers who don't live here, so we'll have an issue, we'll kind of research it a little bit, and they may come back 2, 3, 4 months down the road and say, hey, what happened here? We've already collected data so that we can brief the customer on whatever we found. Now the bill development process. So we've collected all this data, we've gone back out to collect the missing data. There are some items that are manually entered. That would be standpipe usage, water testing, things that are not metered, and things that are not standard. So gas, water, metered effluent, sanitation, wastewater, those are all normal processes. The water testing is not normal, so those would be specially entered, manually entered charges. Then the customer service manager initiates the billing packet process. That's going to be the selecting the bill date associated with that cycle, along with the draft date. When we draft from a bank account, we draft 7 days before due date. So that's a standard for anybody who agrees to have a bank draft done. It'll happen 7 days before your due date. So it gives us time to make sure it happened without causing an issue for the customer. After the billing packet has been initiated, now there's going to be another review. So this is now the 3rd review. They'll send it out for the same conditions and concerns we had when the field customer service personnel were going around. Abnormal consumption, zero consumption, numbers not matching. So staff will go back out again and make sure that all of them have been addressed and answered. Yes, Councilor.
Councilor, you ready?
Abnormal consumed water that every resident's got. Say that one of the residents got a leak on the property or whatever. It takes, sometimes they complain to me that they take like a month before they notice. Can your computer,
And we'll be covering that too. That's,
Okay.
there are ways to find out as early as possible, but along with that we have a process that allows for the fact that there is sometimes a 30-day delay before the customer or the city notices a particular increase in consumption.
thank you.
So then after that, a graph is generated. So we do have these abnormal events. Again, to prepare for possibly having to brief the customer, if we see it, we're going to go ahead and generate that draft. Generate the graph. The graph is 90 days, so if we wait sometimes until a customer comes in to see us, again, some of our customers don't live in Las Vegas, we may pass that 90-day period to get a good graph. So we get it, we print a graph and have it in the record at the time that we noticed some abnormal conditions. Then the bill is calculated, the account register is printed. When the account register is printed, and that's a lot of text in a very small space, then a detailed form, I apologize.
It's okay, we can't see it either.
So the print account register, a detailed form is to verify each customer is getting billed for the services that should be active. This again goes back to the customer service manager. She's going to look at the account register and make sure that the account's not supposed to be inactive, that it is an active account, and that customers should be charged for these services. Then it is printed in summary form for another review. So now we've had a couple of reviews. And that's by a separate entity, that's by the customer service supervisor. So the customer service supervisor will review the summary. If there's any corrections to be made or any questions to be answered, it'll be addressed at that time. And then it goes back to, then it gets printed, or the customer service supervisor then goes ahead and has the version that is provided to Master's Touch. Master's Touch is our printer. So this has now gone through the supervisor, the manager, the field customer supervisor, and the consumption clerk. So 4 people have seen the data related to this particular bill. It gets printed, it goes to, or it's made available to the printer. The printer then provides it electronically to our customer service supervisor, Rebecca Rice, and she does the last review. Once she reviews it and she signs off on it, then Master's Touch can send out the bills. So it has gone through 4 people at least 5 different times for review of the bills, the quality assurance, to make sure that if there have been any abnormal numbers, that they've been addressed. So again, 4 staff more than 5 times have taken a look at each account at various levels to be able to notice if there are any concerns.
Councilor Casey?
Thank you. How long does it take from the first reading to actually the bill being sent out?
Approximately 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
So after all this is done, and I will say, we can still miss some. You know, this is 11,000 meters. We on occasion still have a flip number. So then that kind of, that's where we kind of want to work with the customers. As soon as a customer sees a concern of any kind, we would rather them come to us right away. That way we can address it. So now we have a leak detection.
Councilor Howell, I believe you had a
I'm sorry.
question?
Yeah, if I may, thank you.
Please
Mayor.
ask for the floor, councilors. Okay?
That's right.
No, I know you do.
Okay. You said at least 5 people see the report?
At least 4 people, yes.
Okay. What does the first person that sees it do? I mean, he sees it and then just puts it down, or?
Well, no, he's collecting it, he's reviewing it while he's collecting it, and he's then handing it off to the collections clerk. So there are several sets of eyes that see it and look for abnormalities. When we went down this road, what houses did we miss? The system will tell him what houses he missed. So he's the first set of eyes is to make sure that we got every residence.
Does he say that anything to anybody while he sees the report?
Well, the device tells him, and then he talks to the clerk, and that's when that report that I mentioned is generated, so that they'll go back out to that residence and collect the data that was missed.
Okay, and you're saying that it takes, what, 3 weeks?
3 weeks.
3 weeks.
For just this one cycle. So every cycle is a 3-week process, which is why when you look at your bill, it says we read it on March 15th, but your bill, you're not going to get it till April 15th or 20th, and it's not going to be due till May. is it takes 3 weeks for our QA process, and then another week for the final printing, or so. It gives us about 4 weeks before it needs to be mailed to you, and then you're given another 30 days after that to pay your bill.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Okay, so the next portion of the process is the leak detection process. The system does flag these high consumptions that I mentioned. So it helps us to determine, is there a possibility for high consumption, and is that high consumption a leak? High consumption is not always a leak. High consumption can be a toilet flapper stuck open. High consumption can be, we've had some tenants who have gotten upset with their landlords, turned the faucets on and left the building. There's a wide variety that can lead to high consumption, not just a leak. We are not in the home 24/7, so we use what we can to be able to decipher what that is. So the system will flag accounts with high consumption. Again, that's the history that I mentioned, as long as there's not a history of it. If this resident uses 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 gallons a month, 8,000 gallons is not going to trigger it. It's going to have to be 9, 10, 11,000. It's going to have to be a difference before it triggers our computer to tell us this isn't normal. And which includes, by the way, if somebody does have a leak. So if somebody has a leak in January of 2019, and for 20,000 gallons, a 20,000 gallon consumption next month is not going to trigger it as abnormal because it happened once before. Even though it was a leak, it happened once before. So the computer system won't trigger it, but that's where our staff, when they're looking through it, they go, that's not normal. Computer system may not have caught it, but the people will. So then the high consumption report is reviewed for the entire system for each cycle. And then at that point, check for leak work orders are generated. And staff will go out and they'll look at the AMR, and they'll compare the AMR to a manual. Is what the read that we took when the read was taken compared to what we're manually seeing in front of us. So they'll compare that first. And in addition, the AMRs have a leak detector on them. There is a little flashing symbol in the corner that tells the meter reader if the device is sensing some sort of leak, all the way down to 0.08 gallons a minute, which is equivalent to a slowly leaking toilet. Those are common. They happen a lot in the homes with the toilets that we have.
So when that detects it...
Councilor Romero?
Sorry, Madam Mayor. So if it does trigger that light and the truck passes by, will they...
If it triggers a light, then they know that the leak indicator is going off. Now they're going to start a leak detection, the rest of the leak detection process, which is, if it's small, we'll send a letter to the customer and let them know. If it's large enough of concern, if it's mid-level, then he'll knock on the door and he'll say, you've got a good leak going on. If it's tremendous, if we're talking 1,000 gallons a minute, we'll shut the water off. And again, try and get in touch with the customer as quick as possible. But that's also possible for the commercial who don't have the AMR. If the meter is turning, when our field customer service person goes out, they'll, instead of looking for the flashing light on the AMR, because they've already been dispatched to this residence or this business. So they either see the flashing light on the AMR, or if it doesn't have an AMR, they'll stand there and they'll look to see if the meter is turning. And then they'll also do a verification with a 5-minute clock test, which is to see how much the meter is turning within a 5-minute period. Because it's possible to have intermittent leaks. It leaks, then the flapper goes back down again, or something catches and it doesn't leak. So if the meter reader isn't there right at that second, he's not going to notice it by the indicator. But if he stands there for 5 minutes, there's a good chance he'll notice something.
Any other questions?
Next portion of leak detection is check for flow. That's the 5-minute clock test that I mentioned, and the letter or the personal contact with the customer, depending on the volume of the presumed leak. Again, not every one of these is a leak. Some of it's high consumption. The other critical part of this is the customer. We have 11,680 something meters to look at. They have one bill to look at. So it's very critical that people do look at their bills and not just pay them. If it's different than last year, and on a bill, can you send me Let me see the bill. On the bill, we have graphs that show your 1-year history. So you can use that as a trend. If all of a sudden you have this tremendous spike over the previous month, please contact us. Let us help the customers find out what that is, whether it's a leak or high consumption or something else. So customers receive their bill, they can compare that to the previous months for changes in consumption, and then meet with us, and we'll print out. We'll do printouts. We have this is a 90-day graph, so this shows us that there is something going on at this residence or this business, and then this is another one that we have, and that would be all of a sudden they had a pipeline bust. They weren't there, they weren't using anything, and then their water line blew. So there's a lot that my staff can figure out just by looking at these, whether it's a toilet or whether it's a water line. This isn't a water line because it's going up and down. When we have a water line breakage, it's going to trend up and it's going to continue to get bigger and bigger and bigger as the leak enlarges. These can be broken down into 24 hours. So something like this, I can look and see if this wasn't a pipeline burst, I can look and I can see at what time of day this happened. We had an instance here at City Hall with a concern about some water, and I went ahead and printed out the 24-hour graph, and I was able to tell everybody when they take their breaks, when they went to the bathroom, not specifically, but generally enough that you could see when consumption was occurring. And we've had customers come in and claim that it wasn't them, it must have been something else, and then we're able to show, well, do you take your shower between 6 and 7? Your water's being used between 6 and 7.
Councillor Howell?
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Gilberry, okay, so it's a major leak or major consumption that you notice. You tell the customer that they have a major leak, and they said, no, it's not me, it's not us. Well, either you have to get a plumber to go take a look at it, and you'll send your staff out there to investigate also. So the plumber says, no, there is no leak within their property. And your staff says, no, there's no leak within the city's property. So what happens then?
Well,
and you still have a big major consumption leak.
And one of the things we do is we have listening devices, so we can actually listen to the water flowing through the meter. And this is a meter right here. It's physical. It's mechanical. It physically takes the force of water to spin this propeller that's inside of here. It's not going to spin on its own. So if I hear water flowing, or my staff hears water flowing, and this is spinning, there is water flowing through it. The plumber may not be able to locate it, but there is water flowing through it. There's no doubt in that. But one of the things we can do, just because there's always still a question mark, because we're not looking at this from the inside, is we can take, and we are willing to send these meters out to get them tested. In the time I've been director, I've sent a few of these out, and they've all come back no issue in favor of the customer. And what I mean by that is these, since they are mechanical, they slow down over time. And they tend to not read water flowing through it in the favor of the customer, meaning they're getting more water than they're being charged for. Never had it go the other way.
Some of our citizens tell me, well, I've been away for 2 months and I got a big bill, and no one's in my house using water.
And that does become a concern. Yes, they come sit down. I'm not in your home, so I can't tell. Does somebody else have keys to your home? Is somebody opening up your faucet in the back? Do you have a leak? There are so many things that could contribute to it, and without somebody standing in there 24/7, that's why we use the information that we do have. We can go back and look at the 90-day graph. We can look at the times that it was occurring and try and associate it. I have had customers say, well, I've been on vacation, and we can show them the graph and say, yeah, I can see you were on vacation from here to here, or there was no consumption from here to here, but in this particular time frame, could you tell me what happened? Did you have family guests over? Was there a graduation? Was it Thanksgiving? Was there something that might have occurred that you weren't really realizing how much of an increase in water was happening? Did you have a lot of teenagers come over? Certain things tend to increase water consumption, but we do try and work with them. We will test the meters. We will, as a matter of fact, with a customer, I pulled the meter out. It was reading a certain rate, put a whole different meter on, and it read the exact same rate. So they're not going to show the exact same, fail in the exact same amount. So we put the original back on.
Okay.
Counselor, Counselor Romero.
Going to his questions, those are some of the, concerns that have been brought forth to me also, is, one of the reasons for this meeting is I also wanted to see, we know that gasoline pumps are reviewed annually. We know that the propane trucks, that sell propane, those are, so the meters itself, is there a procedure that they're checked every so often? I know you said that we really haven't, but
They are, the meters can be sent out for testing whenever there's a concern. It's not 11,000 meters, it's not cost effective. They're $70 a test. It's not cost effective to test all 11,000 meters every week, every month, every year. We do plan on replacing them within a 10-year time frame. Their lifespan is about 10 years. The thing about these meters is, again, they don't read more, they always read less. So they are, the meters that are out there are slowly degrading, but degrading to the favor of the customer and not to the favor of the city.
and then the other questions that I had is, these customers, these constituents tell us that when they want that check on the meter itself, that they're refused that. So at what point do you?
The counselor, it's in our ordinance. It's clearly written in our ordinance that if a customer has a concern about the meter, that we can have it sent out to test at the expense of the customer, where if the device is found to be inaccurate, then the city will cover the cost and the customer does not. But I do have to let the customer know that if there is no issue with this meter, then the customer will, per our ordinances, the customer will cover the cost of that test. And some customers don't mind it, and some customers don't want to pay it. And I understand that, it's $70, it's a lot to test it. So that's why we try alternatives. We'll swap out a meter, we'll test a different meter with it, so that it's not an expense to them. Because in my experience here, I don't think I've ever had a meter come back that was spinning faster. They were all slowing down. So I don't want my customers to pay the $70 when I know there's a pretty good chance it's not going to come back in their favor. So again, I have alternatives. I have other meters. I'll swap out meters. But if they're adamant, I've swapped it out, I've tried all this stuff, and they say, no, I still want that one tested.
And as a department, how are you verifying? Because sometimes when they come to us, sometimes we're not given the whole detail of what happened. So is there, if they refuse, is there some type of form that they refuse to have that test? Because
Yeah, that's a good point. No, Counselor, I haven't been doing that. Usually what I do is, we do document our meetings. So it might not be a document they've signed, but every meeting that we have with a customer who has a concern, we do keep it in their record. The date, the time, who was in attendance, and what may have been said in that meeting, a summary of it. If they do want the meter tested, we definitely get their signature for that. They do make an agreement to have it tested.
Any other questions?
So a big critical part of this is the customer. I have had customers coming in to tell me it's my responsibility to test everybody's meter and to keep an eye on every ounce of water that goes through everybody's meter. We can't do that. It's not possible to be able to catch that. So having the customers participate in this and say, something's not right, is very, very helpful. Because sometimes they're correct. Sometimes there is a leak, or sometimes, and it's a below ground leak, and we want to give them credit for it. But we need to know that there's that increased consumption. Maybe it didn't meet our threshold for increased consumption, but when they look at it, it does. So the next thing that happens are audits. Staff do perform audits, so again, there's a possibility for increased consumption, maybe there's a leak, maybe there's something going on in a residence. So these field customer service personnel will go into the residence with the customer's permission. They'll have the history, whether it's a 90-day graph, whether it's a 24-hour period. They have dye tabs. They'll use their eyes and ears. Do they see water flowing? Do we hear water flowing? And if there is the meter turning, we can't find anything in the home, if there is a valve, we'll isolate the home and see if the meter is still turning to help locate or give a tendency for it to be an underground leak. So on the 90-day graphs, again, we can break it down to hourly. The home audit work orders, we do try and do those as often as possible. I have also gone out to homes personally when a customer is very, very adamant. Recently, I did stand in a customer's home in their bathroom with them while we had a conversation that they did not have a leak in their home. And while we were standing there, their toilet went off. And I said, that's contributing to it. That may not be everything, So sometimes you just don't hear it and see it. And I'm one, my son flushed the toilet one day, left, and the toilet continued to flush for hours. Don't know how much water was lost. And then the very next night, my husband did the same thing. And we were within 8 feet, 10 feet of that toilet. I didn't wake up and he didn't wake up. And it flowed all night long. So it is possible. We hope it's not happening. We don't want to believe it's happening, but sometimes it does. So any documents developed during any of these testings, any of these audits, any of these home visits, all of that is saved. All of that is recorded and logged. But there is possibility for adjustment requests. We do get, what about 10, 15 a month? Mm-hmm. Okay, so about 1/3 of 1% of all of our testing for that week come back where we might have to look at an adjustment. And those are people who are just requesting it. It doesn't even end up resulting in an adjustment. So 1/3 of 1%. We're getting into really small numbers. That's, like I said, about 20 people. They'll come in and they'll say, I had high consumption, I'd like an adjustment. Well, the first caveat is it above or below ground. If it's in a shower, if it's in a toilet, if it's in the home, per city regulations, it's the customer's responsibility. If it's below ground, I don't expect them to find it easily. And for some of them, we have a residence that I think it's a 2-mile service line. Their line is 2 miles long. They have a leak and they can't find it. So now let's say it is below ground, then the customer provides us a letter saying, we have this leak, we've repaired it, we would like an adjustment. They have to do that at least notify us within 30 days of them being notified, whether it was us putting a notification on their door, us calling them, or them receiving their bill. Those are all considered city notification. The customer is then required to provide us photographic documentation before and after. This was the leak, and now it's fixed. And then we'll have staff come out and verify that there's now zero consumption and that the leak was fixed. Again, there are some limitations, again, per our city regulations. The leak has to be 5,000 gallons above your normal consumption. So if you have a leak and it's only 100, 200 gallons, you're not going to be able to get an adjustment for that. 5,000 gallons or more above normal consumption. Second thing is the customer can get 1 credit every 2-year period. So if they get a credit, and we've actually discussed that with customers, it's a very small credit. This has happened to you before. Do you want this credit? If you do, then for 2 years, you won't be able to request another adjustment, and allow the customer to make that decision. And then it can cover up to two billing periods, mainly because it's 30 days before they get their bill. Now it's another 10, 15-day process, maybe before they can even get a plumber out there and they've located the leak. So we allow them to, as part of the regulations, you can get a credit or an adjustment up to 2 billing periods.
Councilor Casey.
I was reading the bottom bullet that says that, the customer can work out a payment plan.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I volunteer at the church, and a lot of people come in to ask for financial assistance in paying their bills. And the church has a policy that they don't help a customer until they have a shut-off notice. My question is, some of those shut-off notices are like after they owe maybe $300.
Yes, Councilor.
Some are for $2,000.
Yes.
Why is there such a disparity as
That's-
to when someone gets a shut-off notice?
Thank you for asking that question. That is actually something I've been working on, and I hope to be able to present it to the council at some point. I did try and bring it up previously, but it just didn't fit within what we were doing at the time. Nothing against anybody in particular. The city decided, I don't know how many years ago. Let me step back. The state has a 25-day requirement. I think it's 25.
Yeah.
When a customer receives a bill, they get 25 days to pay it. That's it. That's a state requirement. At some point, the city of Las Vegas extended that. So the city's ordinances are much more lenient for customers than even state requirement. I believe that was intended to help customers who had a hard time meeting their bills and had a hard time, to give them a little bit more time to pay them. We have a lot of customers that are 2 months behind on all bills. So their bills are $200, $300, $400, or even $1,000, $2,000, because that's 3 months worth of bills before they've got to the point where we can even start the process to cut them off. So I believe it was done to help them by giving them more time to pay the bill, and I believe some customers are actually hurt by that, because now they have $2,000 that they have to pay for, not $600, $500, or $400, or if it was a leak, maybe even only $200 or $300. It does compound, and I think we've hurt some of our customers with that. Not all of them. I think some of them take advantage of the 60 to 90 days and wait, and now they're up on their bills, but they're 2 months behind. But they're consistently paying, but they're consistently 2 to 3 months behind. So that's what happens with a customer is we are not allowed to start the process until it gets to, I think it's 60 days. And then after that, we have to give them 10 days notice. And then after that, there's another 10 days. There's a series of extensions. So now they're into the third month, the third bill, before I can give them a cutoff notice. And it's a huge, tremendous bill for them, which is when they come to you or come to other aid agencies. So that's why.
Okay, because the business manager asked me why, and I said, I don't know, but I'll
I
try to
can't
find out.
I can't give them a cutoff notice till 70 days. I think it's 70 days. 60 days from the bill, and then another 10 days before I can give them a cutoff notice. I have to give them another 10 days. And then there's another 10 days after that before we can actually cut them off.
Thank you.
So
Counselor Howell?
Yeah. Isn't there a rule that you can't cut off water to anyone
no, Council.
because it's a safety hazard and health hazard?
There is, in the wintertime, there is one for fuel, for gas, that there are processes, additional processes that we have to go through before we can cut somebody off between November and February.
So how long does a person can go without water, without getting health issues?
Counselor, that would vary, but that's...
No, the reason why I'm
Yeah.
asking is I was under the impression that we cannot cut off water to any residents because of health issues.
That's incorrect, Counselor. No, we can, if they don't pay their bill, we give them time to try and pay their bill. We have to give them time, and we have to give them an opportunity to work out a payment plan. But if they
Okay.
don't pay their bill and won't work out a payment plan, water's not free, and they will be cut off, and there is no restrictions on that. The state clearly says if they don't meet the requirements, they'll be cut off.
Okay.
Again, gas is the only one where they're a little bit more careful with it, especially during the winter time. When it comes to water, a customer can go down to Walmart and buy water. When it comes to gas and heating a home when it's 0 degrees, there's a little bit more of a concern to making sure that the healthy, the indigent, certain people may not be able to find an alternative, and so they do give them a little bit extra. By the way, that doesn't mean that we still can't cut them off. It's just different processes. I think we have to give them, again, the opportunity for a payment plan. We have to give them a little extra time. But if they refuse to pay their bill, then we can even cut them off for gas, but we do have a few extra steps through the state statutes that we have to work through. And again, that's between November and February.
Counselor Olivari?
Madam Mayor, Maria, what do you do, say you own a piece of property, say I own a piece of property and I decide to take off from the city and don't pay the water bill. There was an issue from a resident that happened that he sold the property, didn't pay his bill, and the guy that bought the property had to pay for that water bill. Don't you go after the first owners that own that property after that water bill?
So whenever a property is being sold, the title company contacts the utilities department and to find out if there are any outstanding debts on it, and then that becomes part of the sale process, where if there is, let's say, $1,000 due, then the title company will make sure that that gets paid, and it comes out of the seller's money.
How come you don't go for the person that owns the property?
Well, that's the seller. That would be the seller. So, and that's only when there's a sale transaction, when there's a title company involved. So yes, we don't we try and go after and collect from the property owner. They don't always want to pay. And our last effort would be when the property is being sold, that we are able to collect at that time because the title company comes to us. In addition, we also do liens on properties. Again, for the seller to be the one held accountable, not the buyer.
How come I don't take them to court or do some kind of...
I think Jody might be able to talk a little bit more about this, but I remember at one point, I did see that we had a collection agency, and we were not taking any money in. It was costing us more money for the collection agency to collect the money for us, and then they kept it all. So we tried to use collection agencies, and it wasn't.
Because some of these property owners owe $15,000, $2,000, $25,000, $3,000. You know, and when you buy a property, you know, you're the one that's going to go pay for that, you know. And then if the city doesn't get paid, you know.
Yeah, the amount that we've tried collection agencies, that's not cost effective. We don't have the staff to, there is actually a position, a collections position, that I'd like to get back up to speed. Where they're going door to door, trying to collect. That can also be dangerous, so we try and be a little careful with sending our collections person door to door, asking for money. But when it comes down to it, because you specifically mentioned a buyer and a seller, the buyer should not pay, and we don't want the buyer to pay. We do want the seller to pay, and the title companies, I want to say always, because as far as I know, they always come to us.
If they go through a title company.
As long as they go through a title company, and we usually collect at that point. And then the final option for us, because it's not expensive, is we do place a lien on properties, and we have worked with the city attorneys, and we do have a series of liens on file for a few properties. Not a lot of people sell around here, so those liens are still outstanding.
So say there's the owner owns $1,500 of utility, you know, water. Do you put a lien on it? Or you don't?
We'll put a lien on the property if that is the best alternative. For some people, they stay in town. We know them. We'll find them when they get to their next account, and then we will, you know, hold them accountable for the unpaid bill at the previous account. So if, you know, just to use an example, Counselor, if you moved from one residence to another, you left one bill and somebody else moved in, before we would turn on your water at the next residence, we would ask you to settle up from your first bill.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
So then there are the adjustment requests, as I mentioned. A request goes through several people. An adjustment request goes through several people. It starts with the customer service rep. That's the one who's collecting the pictures and the data and the letter and the request. The distribution manager will also take a look at it. So water distribution will have his staff make sure that the leak was repaired. Customer service manager will review it to make sure that it meets all the requirements and that the calculations were done properly, because the customer not only gets an adjustment for water, but they're also going to get a sewer adjustment because they are connected. And then it comes to me for final review, and I send it to the city manager for final approval. So the city manager makes the final approval on adjustments on accounts. If it doesn't meet the requirements, we still again try and work with the customer. We'll let them know that whatever it didn't meet, whatever requirement it didn't meet, and then we'll try and work with them. And that's the end. I did mention wastewater, and I was going to put it in the presentation. Wastewater, it is not metered, so that is calculated by what we call the winter quarter average. The winter is the time of year when we expect you to use the least amount of water. You're not watering plants, you're not using water on your yard. So we will take that 3-month period and average it out, and for the next 12 months, that is your monthly consumption for calculating wastewater charges, unless you greatly exceed it, right?
You're charged what we calculated as an average for November, December, January, February.
Okay.
And then, but if your water usage exceeds that amount, we'll still keep it at the average amount.
Okay. But if it's lower,
Then we'll
charge the lower amount. So that's it. So we'll use the winter quarter average or less over the next 12-month period. So we don't charge people for sewer, for wastewater charges, for what we presume you're using to water your trees and your yards and using out in your gardens. I know some customers have asked that, why am I paying for what's going in the yard? No. We're trying to use your lowest average to approximate it.
Councilor Hall.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Gilberry, do we have any type of a communique that is briefly telling our consumers what to do in case of this issue that we're discussing?
So what happens almost every time is the customer immediately calls us as soon as they realize they've had a high bill, and they get this information right away. And they get a copy. They get a copy of the. They get a copy of the admin regs, which lays out the needs for whatever we require for the adjustment. they do sit down with the customer service personnel. The only time they don't call us directly is when they're going to call one of their counselors.
Yeah.
And so we do appreciate it, and I've received several calls either from a counselor saying, could you help this customer out? We send them right to the customer service person, or sometimes they've even called me or Facebook or tweeted, and I'll send them to customer service and keep them in the correct process. Let's get them with customer service reps first. And
Maybe if we can get a bullet-pointed communique and slip it into the billing process, so they'll know and
In case you have
stick
a
it on
water
the
leak, call us.
refrigerator. So, because a lot of them, when they talk to us, they don't know what the process is. So that's why they call us.
Yeah,
And
and I
that's why
understand
they
the
get
council, but I do
concerned.
find it hard
And
that
one more
sorry.
thing, when they call your phone numbers, they feel that they don't get a right answer.
Okay.
And sometimes, not all the time, they feel that whoever they're talking to is very rude. So they just forget it, hang up, and
We don't
then
want that
call
happening.
us.
I would rather they come in and sit down with us. When I talk about these 20 or 15 or 20 customers that we have come in, almost every single one of them, when they can sit down in front of us, they don't always leave with a smile on their face because they still have a larger bill. But they understand it because we've been able to put the paperwork in front of them. We've been able to have that person-to-person communication. So I prefer so much when we have customers come in and sit down with us and ask us these questions. I've sat down with Councilor Casey and some of our customers, and they seem to respond a little bit more, some better than others, but they seem to respond a little bit more when they get that face-to-face interaction.
The worst customer is a silent customer, and that's what's happening.
Absolutely.
They don't know, they don't understand the process.
Absolutely. Councilor Romero, to your credit, you kind of mentioned that you had a concern about the schools. I've pulled every school's account, and we're reviewing every school's account to make sure. So far, the one issue that I did find had actually already been addressed by staff. But I wish the schools would come call me. And I know that everybody's busy, but if the schools will come call us, I would rather sit down and be able to explain exactly what we did here today with them.
Councilor Howell.
I'm done.
I just want to thank you, Maria, and Madam Mayor for, first of all, allowing me to get this on the agenda, because I think this presentation here that was done today, I don't know if we could get a clip on it. I know it's going to be on YouTube, but a lot of information, a lot of questions that I had that were brought forward, to me, you answered them, and that's important. It's all communication, and there's a lot of it that I they refused. Meaning water department refused, to recheck, refused, and you're documenting that, so that's good. I just had one question. One of the biggest concerns that I had from a constituent, they live in a manufactured home park. Are those meters belong to the city or to the actual owner of the?
All meters belong to the city.
Okay.
Customer's line starts at the point when their line connects to the meter. That's where the customer's responsibility starts.
So like I said, I don't know if we could, get this meeting and put it in a separate, where it's available, so they, if there's any concerns, we could guide them to the website or,
What I'd like to see, Councilor Romero, I think would be really helpful is if we could actually post the PowerPoint presentation that you have here in a slide. This way, if they have questions, it's right there. They can go through the slide, they can look at the slide before they call the counselors, or if they have additional questions, even after they call the actual counselor. So this way, we can assist them as much as possible.
Absolutely. I think I heard some good stuff here. Mayor, I'll put it in a PDF form. I do have Utilities Facebook page for each one of the divisions. I'll make sure it's there. I'll make sure it's provided to IT, so they might be able to put it on the website. And we'll also look at a bulleted informational for our billing. The backs of our billing, the previous printer used to allow us to put free advertising on the back of our billing. I don't think it's free anymore, but the backs of our bills are always empty. So these are good things to put on the backs of the bills.
Exactly. Any other questions, comments?
Yeah, one.
Councilor Howell.
Please make sure it's larger print.
Exactly.
I think some of it can be summarized. I was trying to put a little bit more information than probably needs to be there. So I'll clean it up so it's better for my aging eyes.
No
Thank
further
you.
questions? Thank you very much. Thank you, counselors, each and every one of you. And I hope that now you are fully satisfied with the responses that you received here today. And if not, then continue to ask Maria and her staff questions. Thank you, Maria. Great
Thank
job.
you.
And thank you, Councilor Howell, for taking the meeting for this.
Sure.
Appreciate it.
It'll just take us a couple of minutes to get the finance and budget set up, so take a couple of minutes. I think so.
These devices are actually very interesting. This is actually what collects the data, and this is what holds the data. Okay.
Start from the top. Start from the top. The next presentation, Madam Mayor, members of the council, is a presentation by City Manager and Finance Director on preliminary fiscal year 2020 budget. And we did provide some preliminary highlights that we have included in our budgets. That is the page where it says topic and issues for preliminary budget. We did meet with, Finance Director was able to meet with the department directors regarding their budgets. And one of the issues that we had was we planned our 2020 budget around with a flat budget, other than salary increases, insurance costs, general liability costs, and any other costs that were associated with increases that were coming to the city in the year 2020. We projected revenues in the general fund of well over $11 million, which was just a slight increase, $100,000 and $23,000 increase. We won't have the final budget, the final cash balances until after June 30th. Then we'll start gathering those documents as well and including them as part of our budget. One of the issues that we had was we had a 5% increase in health insurance, dental and vision insurance. The employer will pick up 3.75 of the share of the insurance costs for the city. We also, when Tana and I looked at the budget, and I believe the minimum wage in January will change to $9. And so we're recommending, and we've incorporated into our budget, that everyone start with the $9 an hour number as of July 1. Anyone who is under that threshold would automatically be moved up to the $9 an hour starting pay. Salaries and benefits totaled $14,892,000. One of our biggest costs has been the union contracts, all 3 union contracts. We did submit an increase for those. The FOP, we won't be meeting with them until I believe it's 2020, am I correct, Chief?
Yes, ma'am.
We'll be doing that as well. Critical projects, we have quite a few critical projects that were critical capital outlay projects that we're completing. We're going to be doing the crack and seal that was approved by Mayor and Council last council meeting. We're also going to be doing West National, Mountain View. The Bradner Dam has been completed. The State Police Building is under remodel, and the CDBG grant is getting ready to be submitted, and that would be for the repair and replacement of Hot Springs Boulevard. And then other legislative appropriations we were able to receive, and I know that all of you have been informed about all of our legislative appropriations. We were grateful to receive the appropriations, and those have also been included in your budget. The utility rate study, I know we're all anxious for that, and that is being done and hopefully completed within the next few months, and bringing it back to Mayor and Council as well. our debt dropped, am I correct?
That's correct.
It dropped, our total debt is about $21 million. The bigger portion of that is the governmental funds of 14 million, and that was,
No,
I'm
that's
sorry,
the
that's the
enterprise.
enterprise funds. The 6,650,000 was in the general fund. I know that Councilor Casey, thank you for reviewing budget and taking the time to review it. And I know you had requested that we address some of those questions that you had, and so I'll turn it over to Tom.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon,
Afternoon.
Donna. How are you doing?
Number one, the question was why we're not budgeting for the whole harmless. And DFA does not have a budget line item for whole harmless. What Tax and Rev is doing is they're just incorporating it immediately into whatever they're dispersing down to us from their collections after they've reviewed all tax returns that have medical credits on them. And it's being adjusted, and it's a really complicated formula. So it's not required by DFA to budget for home harmless any longer. Number two, I've addressed, it's 3 senior centers, and those budgets were late in making it to my desk and in time for me to incorporate them in your final budget books.
But they've been handed out to you.
They have been handed out. And the same for the housing. The third question I had was on the administrative charges that the general fund collects from the utilities. 2 of those are addressed in there's ordinances addressing those. And 2 of them, it's to compensate the general fund for services provided to utilities, public safety, finance, HR, payroll, and general administrative. Sometimes with a grant, we'll get reimbursed for indirect cost, meaning, services that another department provides. And they are guided by ordinances that water and gas, those percentages are based on their monthly billing sales. And the other 2 are flat rates. The water FTE money has decreased, and that is due to the water treatment manager leaving. And they have had a reduction in staff additionally. And also, I don't know if you reviewed, there is the operating fund, and then there's the water treatment fund department. On the city clerk's budget, this year we do have to budget for the election costs, in addition to increases in health insurance costs. In the para also increased the employer share this year. And the police budget increased by $272,351. Those increases, the majority is the FOP contract. I included the dollar that the FOP contract was giving them. In addition to a 5%, we're picking up an additional 5% of their health insurance costs, which in one case for one individual translated for him a savings of $28.78. But then the turnaround on that is Social Security taxes have to be paid on it because it's a cafeteria plan, and you don't get taxed for any taxes on your health insurance premiums. So those are the associated costs there. Fire showed an increase of 27,262, and that's also related to salaries. Their beginning salaries were at, if I recall correctly, $8.64 an hour, and to meet the state legislature requirement, we increased it to $9, in addition to all the other associated costs. Airport shows an increase of 36,238. That would be anticipated maintenance issues out. The salaries for the airport are picked up with the public facilities budget. The library increase is increased by 32,226, and that's we've added an additional staff member, a full-time staff member, in addition to para and health insurance. General services shows an increase of 72. We had a substantial increase in the insurance deductibles this year. And also we changed our phone providers and the final cutoffs with our previous telephone provider. There was substantial amounts to be paid, and those were a one-time thing. And that the reserve is question was up by 39,312. That would be a reflection of the total expenditures for the general fund. We are required to reserve 1/12 of monthly of total expenditures. Any additional questions?
Questions, comments?
I have
Counselor Casey?
I have a lot of others, but I really appreciate you answering these questions that I emailed to you yesterday. And
Sure.
It helps me understand
Yes.
why some of those numbers were just so huge, and I'm like, and I'm looking at the budget.
You can imagine.
Yes.
And I
Oh
looked
my
at it.
Gosh, that's an awful lot of money, and I was very concerned about that. So, and I'll wait on my other questions
Sure.
as we go along. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any
Please,
questions?
Are we going to go to each department?
I believe Tana's
Yes.
going to be spearheading this
ready to-
Okay.
presentation, so,
Okay. I'll wait.
okay.
He needs to log me back in.
Oh. Are you down?
It went back to the screen, logged me out.
These are, what I may remind Mayor and Council is these are budget numbers. They're just planning.
Yeah, it's not real money. It's
We don't always have the personnel in place. We don't always have we have several, well, I believe we have close to 22 or 24 positions open right now. And so along with the library, we're looking at a grant that's coming in that'll be paying, we're looking at the grant paying, am I correct, a half-time FTE? So that half-time FTE will be transferred over to the grant once it comes in,
That's correct.
the library. And so it's in there in general fund now, but will be transferred at a later time.
Thank you very much.
And so with that, we'll get started with, you want to start at the very top with the executive?
With the executive?
General fund and go through it and then...
Yes.
And then we'll just bring each department director up as we pull up their budgets, and that way if we can answer any questions if you have any, we'll go from there.
Thank you.
We've got, under executive, we used to budget under executive, the mayor, governing body, and city manager. And DFA they created a whole new chart of accounts, and they want separate accounting line items for each one of those areas. So in the governing body, I've got the 4 counselors with benefits. It's salaries only. Any operating expenses such as traveling, supplies, those are all being budgeted for in the city manager's department. And the same with the mayor's department, her salary in addition to for benefits. Then in her administrative aid.
Okay. On that, Madam Mayor?
Counselor Casey, yes.
Thank you. I talked to you about that before the meeting. There are, I believe, 2 staff or 2 employees with the city who are listed in multiple budgets. And so if you could explain to everybody why that is and how they're being paid or not paid, or why their names appear on the list of employees for the different departments.
We have one employee who will be eventually be transferred into a vacant position in a different department. And Clara Mimes should have thought of this, but I did use the person's name in both departments. And so this employee will appear in one department as budgeted for the full year, and then appear in the second department. Once she does transfer to the second department, the expenses for her salary and benefits will be shared with with the general fund and utilities.
Okay. So that would be for the new position that this person will occupy
Correct.
sometime in the future?
Correct. And if I had been clear-headed, I would put just vacant on that position instead of putting the name. But if there is a question thinking she's going to be holding down 2 jobs, that's not the case.
Thank you.
Also, thank you. Could you also explain when we get grants or things of this nature or additional funding, how that's divvied up for the employee salary as well?
Normally, the majority of the grants, such as with the PD, it funds for overtime salaries. All right. In the case that our city manager mentioned, and this is the library fund, we do have a state grant that comes in to the 103. And if you noticed, I didn't budget anything for the current year because we don't have a grant agreement. That more than likely will not come in until September. At that time, then the salary will assist, will be, part of it will be paid out with this grant.
Okay, and when that comes in, then you do the budget the bar.
Then I
Bring
would
it
do
to
a
us,
budget
and you
adjustment.
do the transfer and transfer outs,
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Continue.
There was I was asked about an increase in the city clerks, and that this year, in addition to increases in benefits and insurances, we also have to budget for an election in March. The city attorneys, it actually decreased from last year.
Okay.
Counselor Casey.
Thank you. The city attorneys shows an increase in pay of $1,500. Is that the same thing that she's getting now?
Yes,
Because I can't
her
remember,
salary did not increase. Let me take a look.
We had so many different contracts for 3 different attorneys that I can't remember who's getting paid what.
The salary is the same, if you'll notice. It was budgeted at $148,594 last year, but that includes the admin aid, the paralegal salary. And it's a slight increase, not quite $1,000 that salary increase there.
It also included the,
For the admin aid, right? Yes.
Okay,
It
so
also
that was the
included the
increase for
75
that.
cents for the admin aid.
Okay, and that was through the ASME
Yes,
contract?
yes, ma'am.
and all other employees, because once we negotiated with the ASME, then all other employees, in addition to the ASME union members, were granted the same.
And that also helped to show those large increases in the salaries in comparison to last year to this year, was the 75 cents for regular employees, and then the FOP contract was $1.
Councilor
On that 75-cent raise, so it was vacant, that vacant position still gave that raise?
Not necessarily,
No.
we just included it in there to cover in case if they come in and we do have to, and we do pay it, it could be a transfer, and at this point, we really don't know that there's going to be someone transferring there, or she will be bringing someone in to assist her in that. So we cover it just to make sure we have it.
Continue.
Then we have HR, Personnel Human Services, and that's staying pretty much even. We have addressed we did see substantial increases in our contractual services for drug testing, pre-employment drug testing, and also the additional items that the city manager and I have noted, benefits and the increases that the unions, the 75 cents. Finance did increase. We've seen an increase in the use of data supplies, and in addition to that, the salary increases and benefits. Community development, I'd like to have Virginia Marujo come up and discuss her community development budget.
Good evening, or good afternoon, I should say.
Cheers to
Yeah, so we're still asleep from the last meeting.
So on our budget, Councilors Mayor, you'll see that it did decrease a little bit, and a lot of that is due to a lot of the vacancies that we have had.
Can you see it?
So you'll notice also if you go and you look at some of the positions that we have, we do, for example, have the land zoning and licensure specialist vacant, which we do have an opening for. And then, as interim, we do have the multimedia right now as vacant as well. And then if we go into our budget with our enforcement, we have
Is it there?
yes, yeah, there it is. So in our in our code enforcement area, we do have 2 animal control officers, and then we have code enforcement specialists. They're all code enforcement specialists, but specifically Jeremiah does with code enforcement, and then the other 2 are animal control. And we have a vacancy there, but it's not budgeted. We've been doing pretty good so far with the 3, and it's pretty hard to keep up with those anyways we go on.
Currently, we have, this budget was prepared before the additional vacancy occurred. So there are 2 vacant positions in this department.
Madam Mayor.
Councilor Casey.
Virginia, Do we have, does everybody kind of cross-train everybody else in the department? Because the department is small for the amount of work that you all have to do. And so I'm concerned that like if somebody gets sick or somebody decides to retire, you know, what happens then?
We do, as a matter of fact, so for example, with the code enforcement, they definitely cross-train. They're always cross-trained. That way, if something happens, that's how we were able to work with Jeremiah to go and help with code enforcement. Same thing with our other positions. So we work really well together as a team. We're always helping each other out just in case something like that does happen. We have a lot on our plates as it is, but anytime we get that opportunity or that, you know, or we see that somebody needs the help, we'll take the time and we'll learn it so that we can help. For example, even with Maria, we've all been jumping in there somehow or another. Robert goes in and he'll help with permits.
We're discussing the budget, not the actual daily operations of the budget. Now
Yeah, she
how?
was asking about cross-training.
Yeah, we understand the cross-training, but how does that impact the budget?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we don't have to hire for those additional
Okay.
people if we're cross-trained and we're there to help each other.
Okay.
So instead of having like 3 or 4 people for planning and zoning, if for some reason, say Maria was to go on vacation, one of us can step in and do business licenses and the other one can do permits and so on and so forth.
Okay.
So that there's not an immediate need to hire somebody like right this very second if somebody takes ill. Thank you.
Sorry, I apologize. Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, Ms. Marujo, Counselor Howell.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Ms. Marujo, so are we saying that we're not going to hire anybody to replace Maria? Is that what I hear?
No, Maria will be replaced. We actually have a position open for land zoning and licensure specialist to come in and to learn that position so we can move them in. Also, we do have an admin aide, one that we just filled, and so she'll be coming in and learning that. So eventually, hopefully, maybe one of those will be able to.
Okay, so
fill
we will
into
be
the
hiring
position.
someone.
Yes.
You answered the question. Thank you very
Yes.
much. Any other questions?
Well, I mean, we really need an experienced person, correct?
Yeah,
That's
and well,
what,
and that's the purpose of the land licensure specialist, is so we have someone that has some kind of experience.
and HR will handle that, correct? Ms. Gagos? Thank you very much.
Okay. How many people do we have for code enforcement? Just Jeremiah?
Yes.
Is it projected to get another one?
No, we're just looking to keep Jeremiah at the moment.
Wait,
Well,
we're going to,
Ms. Gagos? Okay.
I'm sorry, we're gonna, we have 2 code enforcement officers and then another Jeremiah's position who is still code enforcement, he's still code enforcement animal control, because he's still working at that. We haven't, so we'll be advertising for 2 positions.
for 2 positions?
Yes.
Okay.
Positions.
Yeah, because it's
And they've been
really needed.
budgeted.
Yeah,
Yeah, and they've been budgeted.
okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, let's continue.
Since I have you up here, I'll have you do Lodger's tax. Only once, remember.
Okay, so lodger's tax, the board did agree to have a rolling budget. And so that's what they did again this year. They'll continue to follow the same budget process as last year. And we did see a slight increase in the lodger's tax this year, which was great. A very small portion of it was the 1% increase for the infrastructure that we did, which is being used at this moment. It's great to see that. But yeah, lodger's tax, and we're looking to see now with Christie's stuff to see more of an increase as well.
Questions, comments? Can you see? No.
Can you see?
Can you show me the contract?
Just a
service?
question,
Okay,
real
sure.
quick. So the amount that's here that shows the
Under
fund,
construction.
the lodger's tax promotional, the money that we had was 300,951.87. So it shows here.
I believe she said there was an increase, correct?
What document are you looking at?
I'm
The
looking
ones
at
that
the
provided
second
to you?
page of the handout
Those
that
would
we
be
got.
actuals.
These
from-
are actuals from this year?
From this year,
Okay,
that's correct.
okay.
So I budgeted as flat as I could. If we see by June 30th, I expect to see the actual, what we actually collected, and then hopefully it's in our favor, and we don't have to stay with the flat budget.
Okay.
But I tried to be as conservative as I could, but still expending the monies we need to expend for necessary and reasonable expenses.
Okay, so then the budget report account summary says that we have, we have 49% of the total amount that we had before, so that's what is budgeted for next year? Half?
That's correct.
No.
Let's see.
We budgeted the same budget that we had for 2019. We used the same, almost the same numbers for the year
Okay, and
2020.
in hopes that we'll be getting that same
Yes.
amount? Okay,
So Tana was correct.
yeah,
Thank you.
okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Counselor Romero? Yes.
Can you explain what you said, rolling over the budget?
Yeah, so the Lodging Tax Advisory Board meets right before we do the budget hearings to talk about how they're going to distribute budget. And what they did is they agreed that the same thing as what Tana and them did with the amount of the budget, is that they're going to distribute the same amount of budget that they did from last year's budget this year, as far as percentages with contractual services and the marketing and promotions and, the different items. So I believe there's 4 of them, and they just split it 40, 20, 20, 20 last year. And they're just doing the same thing this year, and keeping with the same budget from last year.
And then if there's an increase, they demonstrate that.
Yeah.
Exactly, through a budget adjustment.
I have another question.
And
Yes.
I guess my, and I brought it up to Madam Manager, so the expenditures that the board will make ultimately come, as they go through the year, will come to the council, right?
Tana, would you answer that question?
As the resources come in, if additional resources are coming and people get encouraged and they can increase their budgets, and maybe that one item that was on their wish list that at the beginning we couldn't budget for because we didn't have the resources, then they'll come back and ask for a budget increase. But I do rely on the Lodgers Tax Advisory Board to say, because they get these documents and they review what monies are coming in, what monies are being expended. And if there's enough monies, additional monies coming in, they can ask for that budget increase.
And also understand that the lodgers tax serve in an advisory capacity. So if the council feels that, and that's something that we've discussed with Donna and Anne Marie, that maybe that there was too much appropriated for one item and not enough justification to substantiate that. But I believe the lodgers tax is very good about reviewing that. Then the council does have the right to have some input on that as well.
That's correct.
Okay.
Ultimately, the governing body has, can decide yes or no on their budget increases and the increased expenditures for certain items.
Exactly. We've done that in the past. Councilor Casey?
Yeah.
Okay. There are some funds that are given to nonprofit entities from the lodgers tax. And I know that
the Chamber of Commerce has been reconstituted, and they will be coming, I think, to the Lodgers Tax Board to request money for that. The Hermit's Peak Watershed Alliance also will be coming to ask for money to, I think they need $40,000 or so to finish the chunk of money that they need to do phase 2 of the Guyanas River restoration. And I know that the tree board, and I'm looking at the tree board people, and I believe that they had mentioned before that with $10,000 we could buy 1,000 trees. Or
more like 100.
Oh, 100. Yeah. Oh, well, however many. To wishful thinking here. To get the dead trees replaced. And so I don't know if that, do we have $10,000 in the general fund, because we can't really use
Well,
general
as a
fund
matter
money
of
for-
fact, Counselor, I was aware about the tree board one, asking for assistance, and I did budget $10,000 in the public facilities budget for the trees.
Okay, that's good to know.
Actually, what we did last year, we were pretty aware of the fact that we were going to have, for example, Lee Knudsen come to us requesting funding for the Guyanas River Walk project, which we've been working on for years now. And we're hopefully looking to complete that project. And what I did this year is we submitted legislative appropriation. And through that legislative appropriation, and I aggressively actually campaigned and lobbied for that. We received $70,000. Is that correct?
That's correct. $70,000.
And then they also received for other marketing issues, I believe it was through lodgers tax. How much?
They got another $20,000 through lodgers tax to help with the wayfinding that they're going to be doing along the river.
And then I believe that last year we had already budgeted and discussed bringing in what, 15, 20,000 in addition to. So I think at this point in time, they also have to go to the county to request their share or their portion of that 40,000.
They've already gotten that, I believe. Yeah.
So they're going to, out
Yeah.
of the 40,000 requests. So we've been very instrumental, and I do want to say that in that case, I don't believe that Ms. Knudsen was fully aware of the fact that the city was very involved in the 70,000 in addition to the lodgers tax funding, and also planning ahead with our staff here, Tana and Anne Marie, since last year, to give them an additional, I believe, 15 to 20,000. So we're pretty much set on that one. As far as the tree board, we had also discussed that last year because they were not receiving, I think, the money that they should have. And I'm not certain if we had discussed 10,000 for the appropriation. Is that correct?
10,000
for the tree board. So this was since last year, and we listen to everything that you say and everything that you do in the community, and we're very grateful for your continued support and efforts in the community. You're doing a great job for us, so we're very happy about that. And then as far as the Chamber of Commerce, we have been trying to work with them. That's something that is a very critical situation. We have that run through, of course, our city manager and our finance director and our community development director, and they have to review every single deliverable before we give them any money.
Oh,
And,
that's why I
and,
was
and they
questioning.
have to be something that is tangible, something that the inputs and the outputs are very clear. Because we've had in the past many situations with nonprofits who bring to us proposals that just don't meet the mark. So we're being very careful and scrutinizing every single proposal. Now, if the chamber brings to Anne Marie and to Tana and to Virginia, after they review the actual proposal, a solid proposal with solid deliverables, I am certain that we are willing to work with them. We've never had a situation where we don't want to work with them or with any nonprofit, but I think the set of deliverables has to be substantial and they have to be clear, and they have to have their own proposal.
I was focusing more on, for the chamber, lodgers tax money for marketing Las
Yeah.
Vegas.
And also, I want to add that Councilor Howell here has been very instrumental in also speaking to me about moving the chamber forward, as has Councilor Lee. I know that we're working on that. I think that hopefully this year they will bring a solid proposal to us, and we will definitely look at that. In the past, we've given them substantially a lot of money, so I'm just hoping that the deliverables are clear and they're set aside and different from other nonprofits, because we don't want a duplication of efforts in this.
And in terms of the Hermit's Peak Watershed Alliance, what you mentioned about, what, 40,000 from lodger's tax that they've received in the past?
20,000.
20,000, okay.
The Lodgers Tax Board did approve allocation of 40,000, but they're to do the first 20,000 and then come back, give a
For the
report
next
on
one.
that, and then they would issue the other 20,000.
Okay. I think it's commendable that the city, did lobby for the $70,000 appropriation from the legislature, but that really isn't city money, it's state money. And so I was just wondering if there was anything in the budget that would help them out, or in the lodger's tax that, they can come back to and get that final chunk of money that they need so that they can move forward with that second phase.
As it stated, Councilor Casey, we did talk to Leah last year, and we did commit to 20,000. Now, why she brought a 40,000 proposal, she knows the rules of engagement. She knows the county has to come up with half of what they request from us. And the lobbying for the legislative appropriation is still something that could have gone to someone else. And I worked diligently to ensure that her 70,000 was secured. Now, I wish that we could have asked for more, but we also had other projects that were pending and I felt were critical projects. That's why we went with the 70,000. Now, had Leah come to us, I think, and said, well, could you get us 100,000, then maybe I would have, included that at 100,000 versus just the 70,000. But I think that there was some lack of communication, and but we did budget the 20,000. That's what we've got to give her. 50 to 20, I'm not certain exactly what it is, but I know it was budgeted. We had discussed it since last year, and we've had numerous discussions with Leah about this. So that's our number, and that's what she's getting.
And if I may, Counselor, you were asking about the Chamber of Commerce. This year, the Chamber of Commerce did come to us with a proposal to assist them. However, the Lodgers Tax Board, the reason they didn't approve it is because their proposals were inconsistent with each other as far as the amounts that they were giving. And so the Lodgers Tax Board did tell them when they can come with a solid proposal that's consistent, then they would look at it to see about assisting them with the funding.
That's good. Thank you. I have no other questions.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any other questions?
Yeah, thank you,
Sorry.
Mayor, that's right. I just, one question. You did have considerable input from the Lodgers Tax Board in regards to budget preparation.
Yes.
Yes? Okay, that's it.
Yes, we did make sure that they were able to discuss it before we came here today.
Okay, and they approved or gave you a recommendation on.
Yes, and it is
What
in
they
the
needed.
minutes from the last meeting. You'll see once we.
Oh, that's good to do.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you. Thank you, Counselor.
Thank you.
Our next department is the police department. And who will be presenting? Marla?
You want me to?
Sorry.
That's okay. Come on.
There's plenty of room.
Can we go over there?
Yes.
Chief, how are you today?
I'm well, Madam Mayor.
Good, good. Glad to hear that.
So I was asked about the substantial increases to the police department. And those, of course, were the $1 that the FOP received. They received it now in May, and then the half of it. And then the next increase of 50 cents will be reflected in the August. So what I did to develop the S1s, the salary schedules, was I took what they were at currently and added their either 50 cents to their pay as reflected, and then the 3% for next year. Because we give them 3% in addition to the $1 raise they got. They also get a 3% as anniversary increase. So that was the increases there in the salaries. And then we had, I did not increase overtime. I anticipate that to stay around the same. We have expended at least $20,000 more of actuals this year, but those were funded by collections from Walmart and movie duties. And we've been reimbursed for those. So as far as general fund money is being spent on overtime, I'm still anticipating the 174,000. Okay. And then, of course, we have the U.S. Federal Marshals, and you anticipate 70,000.
Yes.
Correct. And that's also for overtime. Then benefits increase substantially also because hand in hand, we go with the salary increases. Additionally, we're picking up an additional 5% of their health benefits. The health insurance, because the dental and vision are still at the 50%. And I'll let Chief and Marla take over.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Like Tana said, our increases are going to be based on our FTEs and our medical expenses. Mainly those are our increases. Other increases I saw was in our insurance deductibles. They've increased this fiscal year. In other places I see is our utilities.
Yes.
Have increased as well. And other than that, that's basically what our increases were for.
Correct. Yeah, your deductibles increased substantially. So I did budget at the level of actuals year to date.
Questions, comments? Counselor
Just,
Pizza. Okay, sorry.
I'm almost through my pages of questions here. Sorry. The insurance deductibles are up by $45,000.
Yes,
That's an awful lot of
Yes.
money. I was like, oh my gosh.
Yes.
That's a huge increase.
Yes.
And Tana, you explained it to me before the meeting, but for the benefit of everybody else, on the utilities,
they're broken
for the
down.
water,
Yes.
they went from $45,000 last year to $6,000 this year, and that's because the DFA new chart of accounts. Is
Yes,
that what you
ma'am.
mentioned? So you might explain that to everybody. so
Yes,
that-
up on top, 7307 is the utilities water. That is I budgeted 6,000 for that, and that's pretty close to what actuals will be for 2019. And then down towards the bottom, because the chart of account numbers I'm using here are our internal account numbers. So they're kind of out of sequence because these other items were already created. So utilities, electricity, I budgeted 36,000. 22,008 for natural gas. 7,300 for sanitation, and $1,800 for sewer. So they were just broken out into different line items to make it easier on myself when I have to input this information into the DFA report. I've got the separate line items that I have a corresponding DFA number to.
It's very comprehensive
Thank
that
you.
way. Counselor Liberty. Thank you, Counselor Pizza.
You answered the question on the utility. And I have a question on you're not budgeted for any of the Region 5 or Region 4?
Yeah, those are on our grants.
Those are separate.
Those are
The
grants?
general.
Those are grants.
Yeah, so you don't budget on that?
Yes.
Yeah, we do, but it's under the grant section. But if you have a question on it,
Yes,
did you want
we
to
can go
address
to
that?
there. But before we leave the PD, I do want the governing body to know we budgeted 2 vehicles for them.
Good, good. Thank you very much.
And how many of the?
Okay, he's got the floor.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay,
Go ahead.
did you want to address the issue of the grants?
We're ready to go there if we're finished with the police
I'm
department.
talking about just the PD grants. Or do
Yes,
you want to come back
yes,
to
ma'am.
those?
No,
Okay.
since I have them up here, they can address all of their
Exactly.
funds. Yes.
Okay, let's move into the grant.
Okay. So our Region 4 grant, it expires now June 30th. It's, it is, there's another grant thing here.
Yes, there is, 219.
This grant will expire June 30th of 2019 and will get reapplied for. I'm assuming our grants person is in the process of applying for the grant for next fiscal.
And it has 0 balances because DFA will not approve any budget that we don't have a grant award letter. And then we have the 221.
And what was your question, Councillor Oliveri, on the grant?
For the JAG, they have various JAG grants in place. Some of them will end June 30th and some of them October. They're based on the federal. Some of them are based on the federal calendar, fiscal year. And some of them, if the monies are coming from the state, am I correct? Then the budget's the grant ends on June 30th. But if it's coming directly from the federal government, then it will end September 30th.
This year.
Correct. Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Howell.
Thank you, Mayor. Chief, just one simple question. How many vacancies of police officers do you have?
Presently 2.
2. And do we have the budget in here to
Yes.
get those 2?
Yes, sir.
Good. Thank you.
Okay.
That's what I wanted.
I had the same question only about dispatchers.
2 as well.
That's 2, so you have
Yes, ma'am.
the 4 vacancies.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
And 1 custodian.
So you have a total of 5 vacancies.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Very good.
Any of the other grants?
On the traffic safety grant, I know you do the DWI. Does that change or it's usually always the same? You guys always
I
use it?
haven't seen from prior, but
Like, what do you mean, does it change?
like,
You use the same, like the DWI, the Operation
funding
Buckle Down,
amounts?
do those, those same, the same routine
Yes.
stuff?
Same routine.
One more question?
One more.
Councillor?
In regards to the police cars that we're going to get, who are those cars going to go to?
patrol.
To the patrol?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
You got it?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to make sure.
Perfect.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good job.
I'm taking your priority.
Don't take my coffee. That's my mouse cord.
Okay, the hot seat.
Yes.
There you go.
Good
How are you?
afternoon, Mayor, councilors.
Good.
So I spoke with our finance director and manager over a few different things, and just to recap, if you recall last year when I came up here, we were tasked with 2 difficult situations. One, deputy fire chief position / inspector, and 2, replacing 2 aging fire trucks. With your assistance, we've accomplished both of those. So first off, I'd like to say thank you. We have the deputy fire chief in place. He's doing his inspecting program. All that's going good. Our trucks are pretty much spec'd out. That's going to be an ongoing process. That'll take a small portion of the budget that we're going to utilize carryover funds from our state fire protection monies to equip the first truck. The second truck comes fully equipped. So minimal impact on the general fund as far as any type of fund going to equipping the apparatus or purchasing the apparatus. Hopefully we can utilize all state monies for that. Okay? So when we talked about our budget for fiscal year 2020, we agreed to submit a flat budget. No increases on any of the line items as far as equipment, any of the line items other than the one that she already spoke about. Some of the major projects that are coming up will be continuing the Fire Museum, which we're lucky enough to get legislative appropriations in the amount of $70,000. Hopefully that'll be taken care of by next summer and we can open that up. And the fire trucks as well. So we agreed on the flat budget. The only task that I see that's going to be one of the biggest hurdles, and our finance director and madam manager have been very good in helping us move forward on it, is the pay plan for the fire department. Retention is an issue for us, and it's been the biggest issue over several years. I know the entry-level pay is going up to $9 an hour. We're very grateful for that. I see union negotiations coming up in the very near future, and what me and Tana had agreed upon and talked about was trying to maintain a flat budget and not ask for any increases in general fund. So if there's any monies that are available, maybe we can utilize them towards the creation of a pay plan, a solid pay plan for the fire department. Because of retaining the experienced people, we're acting as a training facility again and again, and that's been one of the biggest issues for us. So other than that, that is going to be our focus for this round. So if you guys can help us out any way you can in helping us acquire that pay plan, that would be great.
Didn't we set aside money for the people? Or someone? I'm going to talk to Anne Marie about it.
Members of the council, we're in the process of starting negotiations with the fire department as we speak. We did move everyone, any of his positions that were under the $9, we moved them up to the $9, and that's where we would start our negotiations.
Okay.
Okay,
Sounds
but we're
good.
still at the negotiating.
And the pay plan?
We have not completed a pay plan for them. I think that's the next hurdle that we.
Okay. Well, I think the question here then is,
We've talked.
we need to talk and look at setting aside monies for the actual pay plan. So that, I'm not certain what the cost would come in. I would say between 10 and 20,000 at the most, possibly, or to set up a pay plan. So that's something that maybe we could look at before a final budget. Okay?
Fantastic.
Okay, let's see if they can make it
I
happen.
don't know that we can do it before the final budget. It's due by June 30th, and so the negotiations will continue to take place.
Oh, no, I'm just saying setting aside the money for the
Oh,
actual
I see.
pay.
And we can
That's it.
start at least.
It's for the
planning.
future.
Yes, ma'am.
Exactly. Okay. Okay, thank you. Councilor Lewin.
Madam Mayor, this is something about the building inspector?
Yes, well, it's a fire inspector.
Okay.
So he's in charge of all business inspections from the fire standpoint. As far as building construction, that's still going to fall on CIP.
That's different.
Yes, at this point in time.
Questions, comments? Councilor Howard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Chief, do we have any consideration in getting involved in trying to get that fire training center that the county was talking about with the, I don't know how to explain it, but.
The simulators and
Yeah,
training
right.
centers for as far as a regional approach.
Right.
I've spoken with, excuse me, county fire chief and actually the county manager this morning in regards to that, and we're looking at, from the city standpoint, I gotta go through it with the manager, but there's a grant that's coming up from the state and we'll be eligible to apply for approximately $200,000. That's gonna happen between September and November timeframe. But we need to look for is the actual location for it. I know there have been some ideas tossed around as far as up there by the shooting range, and there was another one over there by county yards and stuff like that. So the plan is still there. We just need some appropriations to get done.
Are we supposed to commit to any funds to this?
I haven't committed to any funds.
No. Are they asking for it?
Not at this point.
Not at this point. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Oh, one more question. Your staffing levels for your fire.
Staffing levels, all we have vacant right now is one, knock on wood. So we've been doing really well on that. Hopefully we don't lose any more experienced personnel, but we brought them up to one vacancy in our department.
And is that budgeted to replace?
Mm-hmm. It is.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
We have the state fire grant.
Sure.
Oh,
State fire grant.
of course.
That was an annual occurrence that we applied for. Like I kind of touched on it earlier, usually it's 100,000. Previous years we've received 100,000 for fire museum, fire admin offices, stuff like that. Last year we received 100,000 for fire truck purchase. This year we're going to be eligible to go up to 200,000. So at the state level they upped it for us. Hopefully we meet all requirements and we can do that. Now the county can also apply for that much each department. If those funds are allocated, that's what we'll probably utilize for a training facility.
Additionally, what I did with the fire fund, I budgeted the amount for the loan to include the NMFA loan for the fire truck. So you'll see that 219,000 in there, that NMFA, and those documents should be closed on July 26th.
Okay. Good job. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate
EMS?
it. EMS fund.
Okay.
So this one's not quite as much, but we applied for the EMS fund.
Yeah.
It's through the EMS Bureau. It's a grant that comes in. Usually it ranges between 7,000 and 9,000. We're lucky enough to get 12,500 this year. And again, it's not solid, but that's what they budgeted for.
In addition to Superior.
In addition to Superior Ambulance.
Which Superior Ambulance has been getting 20,000 from the state.
Yes.
Anything else?
One more? 764.
764. So in our 764 fund, we brought that in front of council a while back. That's for the rental agreement that we have for the American Tower that's behind Station 1. We were lucky enough to acquire 50,000 for that. When we got that 50,000, I discussed it with the manager and finance director, and we decided to pay off one of our loans for the fire truck. That's how we're able to apply for an additional loan.
Good.
For a new loan.
Awesome.
So we utilize that. It's kind of our piggy bank, if you will. We utilize that for any other expenditure that we may come across throughout the year that we can't utilize. Let's say general fund, or we've already exhausted all other funds. We utilize the 764.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Now
Good
you
job.
can go.
Okay.
Finally off the hot seat.
Yeah.
Public facilities.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. How are you?
Fine, thank you. So basically our budget is basically going to be like a flat budget as well. We just had increases on the insurance purposes and stuff. We did try to increase a few things, just like on vehicles, because we were kind of down on the vehicles. The Fords that we used to have, the 2003s, they were all kind of lemons, and we put a lot of money into it, so it's better that we just go ahead and up on our vehicles, so we did add $40,000 to one of the vehicles to actually get one for the public, for the police department. We did actually add one also for public facilities for Ernest, and we were thinking of getting him one with the side bins where he could have all his tools with him whenever he goes out on the field. So we did up that one as well. We did up one on the facilities, which is going to be for our GPSs that we're going to be placing in our vehicles. These GPSs, they'll help you on the vehicles. They'll let you track the vehicle. I mean, we have a little rundown on them. They'll help you a diagnostic as well if you need to diagnose your vehicle. So we're going to get 6 of those, and it came to $950 or $980 for the year. So we upped that one. So our grants, as far as our grants, we did carry over our 2 grants, which is the MAP and the Co-op, which is the West National and the Mountain View. And we do get our additional monies with what we applied for. We will add that to the budget, I guess, when we do get the notification of award. So I think that's all we have to know.
I have a question. What about the FTEs? Are you guys fully staffed?
We're down about 4 employees. I think we need a park supervisors. We need a maintenance on streets, custodian. I don't know if Ernest is doing it or not, and facilities. So we're down about 4 employees.
Okay.
It is budgeted for those something, I'm not mistaken.
They're budgeted, correct,
Yeah.
those 4 employees?
Yeah.
Yes, they're budgeted.
One other thing that I forgot to, our sweepers, since we got a new sweeper, we have to budget for that as well. So that sweeper, a yearly thing is gonna be, I think it was like in the $61,000 a year. The old sweeper is gonna be, February will be the due date, and we're gonna actually buy it, which is gonna be a balloon payment of $30,000, so we do budget that as well. So the option in February, we'll have the option of keeping it or letting it go. That'll be up to council. We'll bring it to you guys on that part. We also had to budget for the equipment. Now in October, I think, is when we do return the equipment that we got and get new ones, and we budget for that one as well.
Okay, good.
That was it. The airport, I guess the airport, that one we did carry over what we had for them, which is the PAPIs. The PAPIs are already done, so that one should drop on that one once you pay that one out. We also had the SRE building, which is per FAA, we do have to have that snow removal equipment housed, so that one did carry over as well. We also had to do, we did a maintenance on them, because they always have to be, it's a yearly maintenance on their fuel filters, which is, I think it was like almost $5,000 for those filters to replace them. They do have they have to get like their card readers and everything checked once a year, so we did make a line item for that, for we don't have to be looking for the money, so we actually put $7,000 for that, for we don't have to, that's approval of you guys. And what else do we do with it? As far as the airport, there is a airfield, it's a rehab, so it's basically going to be crack sealing for the airfield and restriping it. So that's, right now we just got the task order signed. So once they get planned and designed, we might have to budget for that, but that'll be $115,000. It's a 95.5 on that one, so our cost will probably be about $11,000 or so. So, and then I know they were looking at the state side. They were wanting to get a new mower, so it's a 50-50 with the state, so I think it would be $35,000, the city, and $35,000 the state, but we haven't got any letter of award or letter of anything for that one. So we'll have to wait on that one as well. Yeah, and any questions?
Christie, do you have anything?
The tree board, we increased them $10,000 from last year. So.
You what?
Increased it.
Increased it, or we're going to give them 10?
It'll be
10.
10, yeah.
We'll give them 10.
Okay, so we're at 10. Okay. Gotcha. Okay, questions, comments? Councilor, you ready?
Daniel, Christie, How about a pothole machine? Can make it easier for you guys? I didn't say anything like budget or anything like that, or something.
We
maybe,
did have a demonstration on the machine
Yeah,
about
yes, sir.
4 months ago or 5 months ago. But that machine, I don't know, it was at $201,000 for the machine, which it'll actually, you could actually put the asphalt in it, let it sit a day, you plug it in, and you could reuse the asphalt if we didn't use it. It was just distributed for $201,000.
Yeah.
And it was a company out of Colorado that brought it around to show us. And that one, it had everything to do the potholes, but we're hoping to get full roads construction, which we did apply for different grants and hopefully get, and it's a start.
Thank you.
Okay, if you do get the full road constructions, then when are you anticipating this is going to happen?
The map and co-op should be coming in hopefully before July, the letter of award, if we did get any monies for those. And then as far as the call for projects, we did already submit our application to the NERCO planners. That one I should say probably by July as well. If we know we got any money for that one. And then we'll have to budget for that as well. So that is, our 5% was at $200,000 that I did bring to council this last budget meeting.
Okay, very good. Questions? Any other questions? Councilor Howell?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the machine that he was talking about, is that called the asphalt zipper?
No, the zipper, I did look into the zipper for you. That one was at $125,000. It was a company out of Colorado. I did get it was the actual one that we actually had a demonstration on it. It was at 125. And it did come with the trailer, the water tank, the machine itself, and it does attach to the loader, is the one we're looking at. It will be attached to the loader. And we didn't budget for that one at all.
Oh, is there a reason why, or?
Actually, the question hadn't come up after till now. Just that one time, I did have the information for you in case you did ask me in the council meeting. But it was at 125. I guess it's basically up to you guys with that one.
Now, you mentioned the pothole machine that was at 201,000?
I think it was 201.
Okay, so are we budgeting for that, or?
We didn't budget for that. It was just a demonstration on that one, and we didn't bring it to council. We just kind of looked at the machine and stuff and see if it would actually meet our needs. Once our potholes are filled, pretty much that machine would just be sitting around.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. We don't want that because we had a duplication of that in the past.
Yes.
Yeah, we spent money.
Potholes every day.
Yeah. How much does it cost to fix a pothole?
Right now, it just depends on the pothole. It's just man hours, depending on the cut, maybe $1,000, but we're putting our labor and stuff into it, so.
And I think we have more than 100,000 potholes. So I think this machine would really be effective.
Well, I think the question on this, and I don't know, I'm just asking. Okay?
And if I may also.
Yes, of course.
You mentioned that it'll be sitting around after you fix all the potholes, but potholes are never fixed.
Yeah.
So because of the weather-related incidences that we have, I think that that zipper equipment would really be effective and efficient for us to have.
And the zipper is going to be, it's a totally different one from the pothole machine. The pothole machine is just a truck with a bin in the back that you put the asphalt. It'll mix it for you, keep it warm, and when you're going to use it, it has the sprayer and stuff like that to spray the tack. That the zipper you're talking about is like the DOT had on the south side where they zip those two lines and they fill them with asphalt. That's a zipper. It'll zip you up to, I think, 12 inches deep, and then you fill that hole. So it'll just make a trench the width of whatever we get.
We had that demonstration here.
Years ago. We tried to put it
3
on,
years ago.
and we thought it was going to be a successful purchase and project at the time, but for some reason.
Well, we did purchase it, but it was sent back.
No, that was
that's a totally
that was a
different
lay-down
machine.
machine.
That's the asphalt zipper I'm talking about.
It's a totally different one.
Yeah, we have to, let's be very clear on what was sent back to the council and what a zipper is. Could you explain that?
Okay, the zipper is it's gonna make a trench in the asphalt. It's gonna be, we could get it a 2-foot wide trench, a 3-foot wide trench, and it comes with a trailer, and that you attach it to the loader. It's attached with the chains and it just hooks on, and that'll just zip your asphalt. and then you remove the asphalt that you zipped out and you put new asphalt in there. So basically, like in the center of the road where you see all this cracking and stuff like that, it'll take that out and you can replace it with new asphalt. The lay-down machine that she's talking about that we did send back, this is what the highway uses to do full lanes and stuff like that, which we're not qualified to even do
Now,
that.
I got an email from the company, from the asphalt zipper company, saying that why did we send it back?
We'll see.
Okay, so that's why I'm confused, because I know that we purchased it prior to this administration. When this administration came in, it was sent back. So
But that's a totally different.
it's,
Counselor
it
Howell,
is the same.
we never expended any money on any of that equipment that, the asphalt, the zipper, and which was the other one?
Lay-down machine.
The lay-down machine.
Lay-down machine, we did not expend any money. The only money we expended is they did send,
It's a restocking fee,
a restocking fee for,
$10,000, I believe.
no, it was,
Or 20?
2,600.
Okay.
But it was a smaller attachment or something, right? That the company went ahead and delivered?
No.
They sent the asphalt machine, they sent the tack.
Because we only paid $2,600 to get a return. But as far as the paying for the actual machine, the 100 and some thousand, the city of Las Vegas never issued a check.
Well, I'm not discussing the return of the money. I'm discussing the actual machine that came in, and we returned that machine. That's what the asphalt zipper, that they would provide the training for our staff to
Right, but
work the machine.
what I'm saying is we never paid
Well,
for it.
yeah, I understand that. I understood what you had said about that.
I think what he's asking is, was that machine that we sent back the same machine as a zipper? I don't believe that it is.
No, it's
That's
not.
what
It was
It might
different
be.
machines.
Yeah, I have a picture of the zipper inside my office. I can show you what the zipper is. No?
I'll try to look up the email that I received from the company.
And that's another question. How did you receive that email? I never received that email.
Because I went to a conference in Podunk, somewhere, a rural company, for, what's that? It was down south somewhere, where they make peanut brittle, wherever that place is.
Las Cruces? They do
No.
that on their-
Portales, yeah, somewhere around Portales. Anyways, that conference there, they were there, the company was there. And they talked to me about it, and they came and demonstrated the piece of equipment to us. And they would provide the training for us to utilize that equipment, and that would be an efficient way to fix our potholes. And to, if it happens again, it would be used in an efficient manner. That's why I said that was called the asphalt zipper.
Yeah, zippers, it makes a smaller little trench and it'll take care of it. And it does take a good little time. We did it over here, the training that we had was right here by the Little Moon, and you seen that section
Right.
that they took out. So they had to run the machine back and forth till they actually did the whole load. It's just meant for smaller trenches is what the zipper is.
That's what
the
we have.
lay-down machine that's bigger, we don't have the qualifications to use it, and we don't have the trucks to haul the material, because it actually needs a lot of material to feed it. But I could get you a thing of the zipper and show you.
Okay.
Questions? What other question?
I just want to add to, I think that the concern here, and with me, it's been manpower, whether it's manpower or the machine to take care of these issues, because I've always, I feel for the guys that are out there. There's only so many, and you mentioned that there's, I don't know if it was 4 in his department or just 4 in general in public works, but because you guys, I know you guys help each other out when needed, and I guess my question is the 4, do you feel that we're having the trouble filling those positions because of the entry level pay?
Yeah, I think so.
And I'm going to bring this up again, is there a way that maybe we could eliminate, we're doing without 4, they're doing the best that they can. Can we use that salary from at least one of those FTEs increase the other three in order to maybe, entice individuals to come in and start at those entry levels. Because, yes, everybody's going to $9 an hour, but McDonald's is going to be, $10, $11 an hour, and it's hard at that entry level. I mean, there's individuals that they'd rather flip burgers than go and fill potholes and cut weeds and cut grass, and it's tough. You know what I mean? So I'm just making that suggestion now. If we could look into it, I would strongly advise that we do that. Because
But I think we also, Counselor, have to look at the benefit packages that come with the city. The city of Las Vegas, or the state of New Mexico, and the cities and municipalities have one of the best retirement packages out there.
Yeah.
Health insurance packages, health packages. So if you have a family and you look at the McDonald's, who essentially, no offense, have no no health benefits, $10, I'm talking $10 is essentially nothing. When you have all these wonderful things that are tied into family, if you have children and a wife, and I mean, that's my opinion. That you're.
Yeah, I just think long. I mean, I feel for these guys that guys are undermanned, and just think outside the box.
Right now,
and if we could do
actually
even two other ones, I mean, 2 other employees, you know what I mean? And if it's temporary now till we get a few individuals that they start, and then move on, within the
Because there is
departments.
training as well with them, but right now we're utilizing the parks and facilities whenever we do need them and put them out on the field. We're doing potholes and stuff.
Especially when we have things happening, the fiestas, we have the Little Leagues, we have all that happening.
All those events,
It
absolutely.
takes a toll on the department, and of course the frustration within the constituents that the potholes aren't being filled, this aren't done, but you guys are working as hard as you can, and I'm just saying, think of other ways, if possible, if you could really, really consider that. That's just,
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much, gentlemen. Good job. Moving forward.
Are there any other departments in the general fund you would like to go over, or should we skip over to the senior center?
Senior center.
Thanks.
Keep moving.
Can I just ask a quick question on the loans? Okay. I was very happy to see that we paid off some of that debt.
Yes.
But I was wondering, is there any way that we can increase the amounts of the payments that we make every month, or are we stuck on that schedule?
We're stuck on the amortization schedule, and I say that I could send the monies in, but it will not be applied to the loan until the payment is due.
Oh, okay.
I have to do a 45-day in advance request, just like we're paying off the truck, the fire truck, so that he could acquire another vehicle. And the city had to ask permission to prepay the principal, and the principal will be paid off this year. However, there is an interest payment still due on that particular loan in December.
Okay, that's what I was afraid of, but I thought I'd ask.
And in prior years, we did that with the reader board. We prepaid some money on it, and they were able to apply it. But it was a little bit more difficult this time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, how are you?
Good afternoon, I'm good. How are you all?
Good to see you.
Do you have your copies?
Yeah. Shall I hand these up?
Oh, yes, you can.
Okay. This is just a summary.
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you for taking the time to listen to the budget for the senior center. So there's some changes that we're doing for this fiscal year. The state and the AAAs are actually collaborating better, they're getting along, and so things are going very well. Things are looking up as well, and so there was a late allocation of federal dollars that happened this fiscal year that they're looking at carrying over into next fiscal year. And so looking at that, those things have actually been affected here. And so what I'm looking at is, for the most part, all federal is going to be pretty consistent. The home delivery program, I did increase the federal. I'm increasing units in all the programs to better reflect what we're actually serving. And so Congregate, this past fiscal year, we were funded 26,000 units. We're going up to 30. Home delivery, we're funded 66,000. We're going up to 78,000. Transportation, we're funded 77,000, and then later they increased it, so I'm keeping that the same actually. And evidence-based is a new program. That's the Tai Chi program. So looking at all the units and the increases, it is an increase of units from actually in revenue of $172,000. That's what I'm actually asking for more. The reasons for this is we've got an increase in minimum wage, so salaries will go up. Most of my staff, or a good portion of my staff, are at $8 or a little bit higher than that. So it'll affect a good chunk of the staff for the senior programs. Also, and because of that, I'm then also looking at the rate of reimbursement per program. So Congregate, we've always been reimbursed $4 per unit. Home delivery has been reimbursed at $6. Transportation at 10, and Tai Chi has been reimbursed at 10. I've actually bumped those up, and I've been in discussion with AAA about this. They too are saying that these rates of reimbursement have to go up. And so this budget is actually accounting for that. And what I've told them is I'm actually going to break down for them how, what's actually being affected. So I think Congregate went up by 17 cents, $4.17. Home delivery, I think, is at $6.57, something like that. So it's not a huge increase, but it is more than what we've been reimbursed in the past. And it's also due because of the minimum wage increases that are going on throughout the state, and also for the fact that we haven't had an increase to our reimbursement in about, 8 years or so.
Exactly.
So, so it's a double thing. And then again, just looking at actually serving or getting reimbursed for what we're serving. So that's really what this budget is about. So once I've actually adjusted the reimbursements and increased the units and so forth, that is an increase of $172,000 with all 4 programs. And so I'm not sure if you want me to actually go into detail over the budget, or if just the summary itself is good to look at. The summary kind of reflects the changes that are going to be happening. For instance, the legislative appropriations, those are listed on the very bottom of the worksheet. And we are looking at...
Excuse me. Those are reflected in the budget in 217, Fund 217. Because they require separate...
so they're not actually listed?
They're not listed in your senior.
Okay. And so the San Miguel Senior Center, I did increase the lease agreement. We are looking, now that we're looking at opening that site full-time, I'm going to make that effective July 1st. The reason for that is that we have to actually pay the costs of what it is to operate that building to include full propane. And so $15,000 should cover us. I think there's a little bit of a cushion there, but I think it's better to budget enough than not enough. And so I went ahead and put $15,000 in that fund. So overall, for the most part, things are pretty close. They are bumped up. Again, with the additional units, I had to cover for additional food. For home delivery, I had to cover for additional fuel, and so forth. So I don't know if you all have any questions.
Okay, questions,
about the budget?
Councilor Hall?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Are we working with Comodoro de Pascual in regards to serving or providing food for them to serve our hungry?
Okay, that's a very good question. At this point, they do bring us about 30 bags a week that we actually deliver out to our home deliveries for those that are most needy. And so I work with Bonnie on deciding what that number is, and through my home delivery staff, they tell me, this person really needs has additional needs. So we do work in that way. Comedor de San Pascual used to come and serve at the senior center. And after the renovation happened at the senior center, that they did come back, it was determined that they weren't serving as many people, they weren't reaching the people that they needed to reach. The time that we were out of the senior center, they were serving at the parish hall around the plaza. And there they had a much better turnout. They were seeing 60 people. At the senior center, they were seeing 10. And so they made a decision to go ahead and close the Comedor de San Pascual at the senior center and reopen a second day at the plaza. And now, to my understanding, they're reaching 100 people per meal.
Exactly.
And so they're doing excellent. So the relationship that we currently have is really just the food bags.
Okay.
Non-perishable food bags that we do deliver to our home deliveries.
Okay. You're not sharing equipment like ovens and things like that?
No, sir.
No? Okay. All right, thank you.
For Thanksgiving, I believe they did come and ask us for the ovens to cook turkeys.
To cook turkeys, right.
But then they took them back and they served them. So,
Okay.
but otherwise, no, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Oh,
Okay, go ahead.
the seniors are enjoying the pool tables?
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. They're loving them. One of the pool tables had the felt that was a little torn up in some areas. And luckily, we had some felt that was purchased for a different pool table. And so Dennis laid it on. It looks brand new. At this point, we're really just wanting to decide. The 3 pool tables in that room is too much for the men. And so I'm looking at possibly moving one of those pool tables and maybe looking at making a room for the women. But one of the requests that I've done in capital outlay is to actually extend that pool room. So with time, maybe we can extend it and actually then have enough room for the 3. But currently, there's only enough room for 2. But they're loving them.
Yeah.
They're beautiful pool tables. Beautiful. Thank you.
Now we need to get them one of those bingo electronic boards.
Flash board.
Yeah.
Yes, you would make the women very happy.
Yeah. Well, some men too,
Yes. Yeah, there are a few men that love to play bingo.
Oh, yeah.
So that is true.
Councilor
Thank
Woody?
you, Councilor.
I didn't see any budget, like any equipment for like the ladies side of it, like the bingo, thing like that.
Okay.
I don't know if you have that in mind or not.
So when it comes to equipment, most of the equipment can be purchased through capital outlay. But when it comes to bingo machines and so forth, we can't do that. I do have a budget at the very bottom for furniture and equipment. And so we did put a little bit of money in there for that. And that'll be used as needed. It is in there. If also needed, we can move from a different line item if we find a need. But as far as bingo machines, it's a tough one.
5,000.
You have to really weigh, do you buy food? Do you buy, and so a bingo machine is anywhere between $5,000 and $10,000. A good sized flash board like they have at the Elks, that's huge, probably even more, 15,000. So at this point, I've been in communication with a lady that came by, and they're looking at finding donations, possibly at estates. They told me that they do run across bingo machines sometimes, and they're willing to purchase and donate. I'm hoping something comes through, but we'll see.
The casinos would have it.
Yeah.
That would be a good one. That would be a good idea. Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions? Okay, good job.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Yes, ma'am.
Sonia presenting her recreation.
Good afternoon, Sonia. How are you?
Mayor, council members.
Recreation.
flat.
So I just wanted to talk about this fiscal year. We've had good turnout with our memberships and our programs. You know, they've excelled. And if you look at the budget, you know, everything just kind of stayed flat. You know, we didn't spend too much anywhere, so I just kept the budget flat. Do you have any questions on it?
Counselor Howell.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, hi.
Hello.
What about the weightlifting equipment? Because a lot of the users are saying that we need to get new equipment because some of them are falling apart or breaking or.
I think the ones that we do have that we will need to replace are more like the treadmills. The strength training equipment is, we have new equipment, so I'm not having any issues with those.
Okay,
It would
so
be
you
our
did take care of
treadmills.
I see.
I'd like to replace at least 3 this year and try to, you know, maybe next year another 3 and until we get them all.
Is the 3
replaced.
budgeted in here?
In the preliminary budget, I didn't include that, but for the final budget, we can certainly take a serious look at that because she does have, her cash balance is slowly coming up, and so she may have a little bit of cushion there.
In your snack area, kitchen area, are you utilizing that to get more revenues from there?
Yes, it was a success this year. Our
Good.
concession stand is with our programs that we made more than what we had originally budgeted for.
You're getting a lot of energy drinks and.
Well, we have snacks for, you know, the nachos, the hot dogs, chips. We do have the waters, Powerade, you know, for when it was mostly for Gapple when we used the concession
Do you make
stand.
like smoothies and things like that?
No, not, we're not there yet. We'll need a freezer, we'll need, you know, a blender, yes.
Yeah.
Everything has to be commercial.
That's more revenues for you, so
Yes,
that's what I'm trying to think, so.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
A yogurt bar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something to that. All those ideas, yeah, if you can
Any other
increase
questions,
revenues,
Councilor
that would be
Romero?
good.
Yes.
Pertaining to equipment, and treadmills have been an issue, I know, you know, they go out constantly. Is it, and I could have sworn that some of that equipment was pretty new. Is it just the equipment that we're not buying it, industrial?
You know,
or what?
what I'm finding out with the new equipment, the new treadmills that they purchased, the motor is not as big as what we should have purchased. And so like, when I'm able to purchase new equipment, I'm gonna look for the bigger motor because we do, you know, those machines are on the whole time we're open, you know, so it's constant use.
And I guess there's one treadmill that says for walking only. Is that
Yes.
just because it's not
Well-
operating properly, or is it?
The thing is, because it's being used so much, we're noticing that the belt will slip. And so when you're going at a faster speed, for safety issues, I'd rather them just walk. It won't slip while they're walking, but when they run, it'll slip.
Currently at this time, can you tell how many aren't working right now? Because I know last week or the week before, about 3 of them.
It's
Are
still
they-
the 3, and I actually have them, Z took it apart, and she was looking at the belt, and she cleaned it really, really good. And she said, I think it's gonna work better, but we can't tell until, you know, it's like, it's a safety issue to me. I
And
don't
how
want
old are
anybody
those
to get hurt.
machines now? I mean,
Those ones, I believe, are 3 years.
Mhm.
3 years. And the newer ones are the ones that are giving us a hard time. Mhm.
I would just, you know, if there's any way, I know it's preliminary, and if there's any way to upgrade those, it's been a big concern to.
Yeah, it's a huge concern.
We'll
I was
take a,
thinking more of trade-in, maybe you can trade those in for the bigger.
and there's always the possibility of leasing equipment, and then you can just turn them around.
Yeah.
So on a lease, wouldn't they cover the end of the?
They would cover repair and maintenance.
That's what I mean.
Yes.
Mhm.
So ideally, sometimes it's better to go with the lease than to just buy these.
And because
the
equipment
outright.
upgrades like within 6 months to a year?
Yeah, depending on the usage, and apparently they're getting pretty heavily used. So the leasing would be an option versus a purchase.
Okay. Thank you.
With your
Any other questions? Councilor Howell?
Thank you, Mayor. Has the roof been fixed up for the guys that they can go in and play racquetball?
Racquetball.
You
Right
know?
now, they just, they're just finishing up. It's still closed because they have to do the inside part now. So everything that the rain deteriorated, it's just
Wow.
the inside construction that needs to.
How
be
long is that
completed.
projected?
I'm hoping, I asked them to be done by June 10th because our program starts, our summer day camp starts June 10th.
Right.
And we need that facility for our kids.
What is the timeline schedule look like for the?
Well, they had originally told us 30 to 40 days for each phase of the roof construction, but because of the weather, it held them back. I think they had a good maybe 8 days from when it began in April.
Okay.
So, yeah, the weather hasn't been cooperating.
And
And they just finished the roof yesterday.
the natives are restless, so we got to get that done.
I know.
Are you done? Councilor Lemay?
When we go into those contracts for repair, especially roofs, do they give the timeline?
They did. And this one is an insurance claim because of the hail damage. So that was, HR took care of all of that. So, they just sent me the paperwork that this is our time frame, and I've been, trying to keep up with them, telling them, we do need this facility done as quick as possible.
I just asked because I know like with the schools, they have that, and then there was a site that, it would determine if that day, if the wind was, to calculate those extra days. And I'm just wondering,
Yeah, they extend them.
to hold them accountable,
Exactly.
that is happening, just, if it's, like Councilor Gallo said, that it does.
All those roofing
constituents.
contracts were done through the self-insurers. They were the ones responsible for contracting with the roofers, and the city wasn't involved in any of that. We just gave the list of our roofs, and they gave us our estimates for repairs, and then they made arrangements with the contractors to come in. Unfortunately, like I said, to hold somebody to a deadline, when we're not the ones that they contracted with, is kind of difficult.
But we do have a copy of that contract.
Yes, she does.
Would I be able to, or I don't know if the council, I'd just like to see that contract, just, see how it operates.
Right. I personally have not seen any of those.
Yeah, that was risk management and HR.
Yes.
So you have to get that.
Yes.
Anne Marie?
Yes.
You got that? Good.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'd like to have housing come and present their housing budgets.
Good afternoon, how are you?
Hi, good afternoon, good almost evening. Just kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Wishful thinking.
Well, we'll try for 12 o'clock.
Yeah, good try, good try.
Darn it. Madam Mayor, councilors, you guys have in front of you the revenues. We pretty much budgeted flat, but based off of the subsidy that's been coming in, as well as the dwelling rent coming in, I did increase them, but I did conservatively increase them. So if you look at the increases yet for dwelling rent on the revenue side, I increased it by 20,000, as well as for operating subsidy by 20,000, being that these are accruals. Being held for operating subsidy currently on our ELOC's bank statement, or ELOC statement is, did I not bring that one?
no, I didn't bring that one. But it's approximate, a little over 200,000 that's being still held in the federal bank account. So that money actually hasn't been released to us, and that's still in the receivable side. But we are getting our 59,000 every month as we are with the cash. We kind of just budgeted straight line across. Broad recovery, we used to budget in other income, but what fraud recovery is when people leave or don't report their income and then they report it afterwards. It's considered fraud on the FDS schedule. So we were there's a couple line items that you guys will see in here that were added on after the review. So after had reviewed our financials, there was one of the findings we had to actually start address and be more consistent with the line items on the federal side with our line items here within the city. This is also going to be one that for the employee expenditures. If you see, last year we separated it out to the two, between the two. So this full-time employees expenditure line item is just administrative.
And down at the bottom, the maintenance
will be under.
Per HUD request, they were separated into two different areas, maintenance, and then the administrative part is up on top.
It actually does make it a lot smoother when I do my financial data schedule, the unaudited as well as the audited. Exactly. Prior to this, I used to actually have to manually subtract out and take it out so I could enter it into the financial data schedule. So now, all those calculations are completely accurate because it's right there for us. We've pretty much budgeted flat across. What you will see, and you always see the increase, water and sewer, we also had to separate those out. So you do see the difference, and based off of actuals, we did increase water and decrease sewer. So those changes did take place. Other than that, also our telephone, I don't know if it was the new phone system or how it happened, but it is a little bit higher than expected.
But don't you require in the system with the telephone and the telecommunications aspect of it, two different systems for reporting standards for the confidentiality issue?
For the, what do you mean? Like for the telephone costs?
Not the telephone costs, but the telephone lines for separate reporting standards.
No, we've never had to do it separately like that.
Oh, I thought it was my understanding you have.
As far as, that's more the IT system, so that's more of our, what is called our Elite accounting software. Exactly. And then our Tyler accounting software. Exactly. So we do have to have two separate accounting softwares, and we do pay for that out of other professional services or other miscellaneous sundry. What those two systems are is, on our end, we have to submit by tenant's name, address, all of that stuff. We have to submit that out. That's not something that's in Tyler. When we enter all of our information into Tyler outside of Elite, we actually do a manual journal entry, and that's something that is worked on between Darlene Martinez, Tana Vega, and myself on a monthly basis. So before we do our end of month reporting, I actually pull all of the data out of Elite and convert it into Tyler.
So why do you have a $5,000 increase?
That was actually for the actual telephone system. So like the phone systems themselves. I don't know why there was a higher, I don't know if that was like a one-time cost.
Oh, that's what I'm asking.
We had to pay additional monies to CenturyLink for the switchover.
Okay.
To the new provider, and this next year, even though she budgeted according to actuals, I do anticipate that they will be lower this year because our telephone bills will. I've seen a substantial decrease in this month's billings that we're receiving as far as telephone costs go. But in order for them to do the cutoffs on the line, CenturyLink did charge us additional monies.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I did budget based off.
You have the answer.
Yes, I
Okay,
budgeted
thank you,
based
Tom.
off the actual.
So how's that determined for housing versus the entire city?
They get separate billing.
So they charge those cutoff fees? I mean,
Yeah, they charge by line. Well, CenturyLink, each one, whatever account, you know, how many accounts do you have with CenturyLink?
I think we have 4 or 5. Oh, wait, no, 3, sorry. 3, just the fact. I'm all 4 or 5, I'm counting our phone lines.
Well, hungry.
No, not our phone lines. Yeah, so it's just the
It
difference.
was the
fact
cutoffs that there was additional money CenturyLink said
For a
the
reconnect.
city owed. But I've seen a substantial decrease. You got your granite bill, right?
I don't see those go direct, that's why.
That's going
why-
directly to
yeah,
us.
that goes directly to you guys, so that's why I didn't see it, so I don't know how that works, so I just did a $5,000 increase to cover anything that might occur next year.
But I'm seeing now in May on those bills is half of what we were paying before.
Oh, good.
So,
But we did see some
Cost
actual
savings.
cost increase because of all of the cutoffs and
wouldn't it have offset it? I mean,
Yeah, it's a cost savings, I think, yeah.
not yet.
not
It's an
yet.
increase
We
now,
won't,
but
we
it'll be a
won't
cost
realize
savings at the end.
the cost savings until we're into next year.
Exactly.
And, I mean, I see it this month, but last month, you know, we still were getting those final cutoffs from CenturyLink.
Okay. Any other questions? Councilor Coulibaly.
Natasha, I didn't see anything on the budget, anything on the grounds, outside the facilities, did you add?
Yes, actually, those are gonna be in our, well, we have our maintenance of buildings and grounds, so if you have to look all the way down on the bottom, we separated it between services and supplies as well as betterments and improvements. Those are all grounds improvements. Additionally, we also have the budget for our capital fund budget is actually what we use for capital improvements to our sites. So when I apologize, you weren't here for our annual plan last meeting, but we actually went through the detail of like the improvements that were going to be made for the next 5 years to our grounds, and then our projected 5-year budget per se for capital funds.
When you make those, it's going to take 5 years to...
No. What it's called is called a fungible budget. So you have 5 years, and they want me to put everything that I'm anticipating for those 5 years into this big pot.
Right.
And then as we get each grant award, we pull out of the pot, and then we put all of that. And we actually make those improvements to the sites based off priority. You know, if one of our master meters breaks, that takes priority over, let's say, a playground equipment, something like that.
So it's similar to the ICIP plan?
Yes.
Except internal?
What I'm looking at, because, you know, for the past 5 years or whatever, I've been here all my life, I never seen any improvements.
You haven't?
Well, inside, maybe inside the housing, but nothing in the outside.
Well, we actually just did a really, really big site improvement on the Sagebrush, Calle Bonita, and Calle Contenta area. It was about almost a $300,000 project, and it was a drainage project. We redid the parking. We redid the parking, and then there was flooding and stuff that was happening. So they redid like the landscape and the agriculture, or what do you call it? Yeah, the landscaping on the outside. And so we actually did some really big site improvements there. It might not be visually like you don't see it, because it was mostly like crumbled pavement, those kind of things, like sidewalks, that kind of stuff, that ended up having the biggest impact. And our tenants were completely appreciative. We actually increased Sagebrush's parking so that each tenant actually has a parking area now. And then we had to extend parking out. There was a lot of work
I
that
can
we
see
did.
that, but nothing else. Nothing else that I could, you know, fencing or playgrounds or anything like that. I haven't.
Yes,
I've been here a lot of years. It hasn't changed too much. I could see what you're talking about, maybe drainage or parking lots or sidewalks, but nothing else.
If you see like the reviews that we've been under and kind of the scrutiny that we've been under the vacant units that we have and those abandoned buildings, that's kind of why we've had to take our priority that way, because in order to get more money, we need to have people in more houses. And when we have abandoned buildings, our annual contributions contract between the City of Las Vegas and Housing and Urban Development has 267 units on it. Currently, that we could actually house, it's 251. We can have 2 vacant units at the end of the year to hit 93%. And if we don't hit that percentage, our funding starts to decrease. As our funding starts to decrease, there's less money that we can have to do other stuff. So yes, in the last few years, our concentration has been getting people and getting those houses remodeled and getting tenants that are homeless into those houses. So our concentration has not been on playground equipment and fences. Fences along those lines as well, when our REAC inspector comes in, if there's, because our tenants do this, cut through the fence so they can get through the backyard, if there's a cut in the fence, we're dinged and that entire site is dinged. And so our points start to decrease. Our points mean funding as well. So if we have, I think it's 15 points, don't quote me because I might be wrong on that, and one site is dinged for a cut in the fence, they ding us, we're a scattered site, so that means all of our properties are dinged. If, like stuff like that. Same thing like if there's not a stopper in the bathroom, we get dinged for that, and it's site-wide. So there's different scoring stuff that they have with us, and the lower we score, the less money we receive. We've been scoring higher, so we've been receiving more money. As we're receiving more money, we're prioritizing the money to make sure that our homeless, we do have a homeless problem in Las Vegas. We're always asking for emergency housing. We're always being asked for that kind of stuff. The more houses that we can make available to our community is better for our community. That's one less family that's out on the streets. So that's kind of been our priority, is getting those houses ready so that we can put families into them.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Sorry.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Utilities?
Okay.
You're ready to stretch?
I'm trying.
Good evening, Mayor, Council.
How are you doing?
What do you want to start with?
I'm going to do it in the order. I'm going to start with 545.
545?
Yeah. Go ahead. You okay? I will do it in numerical order.
I think I have to.
Admin.
Oh, I didn't do that.
So I have 7 divisions, so I'm going to start with the 545 fund, the utilities admin, and I'll work our way through internal services. Okay. So first thing is, on all of my budgets, you will see an increase on all of them. One of the contributing factors right off the bat is the FTE, the changes, the increases in salaries due to the union negotiated pay increases last year, plus any changes to either PERA or health insurance. On the admin side, you will see one change on total full-time employees, FTE, and the increase is due to moving a couple of employees around. There's actually some divisions that will decrease because this division increased because they were employees that are not specific to water or wastewater or gas or solid waste. They're project management staff that are used by and support all of those divisions. So putting them into internal services was a better location for those decisions. Other than that, the majority of the budget stayed the same. We are going to account for, we are planning for the move to the state police building in this upcoming fiscal year. So there is some funding for any of the final work on the buildings, under building structures and land, as well as our computers are outdated, and I'm not replacing the customer service computers until we move into the building. That way IT can help us set them up. in the new facility, and the transition will be smoother instead of trying to move computers over. Any questions on 545?
Questions, comments? Continue.
Okay, the next one is the 546 fund, which is utility services, also under the internal services. This is also pretty consistent, a little bit of increase due to FTE, due to employees increases. No major changes in that budget. Counselor, I know you've been asking about vacancies. I have a total of 36 vacancies department-wide. 1 vacancy in utility admin and 6 vacancies in utility services. Okay, the next fund is the wastewater fund. You will see some changes in the wastewater fund. One of the biggest changes will be the professional services, the funds required to pay for the contracted management services for Sauter-Miller. So those services are budgeted under other professional. Another change that you will see both in water and wastewater is the EPA is adding additional sampling requirements, unfunded mandates. So water and wastewater's required sampling will be going up, the expenditures will be going up, and it will have to come out of water and wastewater's budgets. There are 5 vacancies in wastewater.
Madam Mayor. Question? Who's first?
Okay. The vacancies, are they budgeted in here?
They're all budgeted. I'm prepared to, as we can hire, as we can fill those positions and have qualified, capable personnel, we will have those positions budgeted to be able to fill them.
Okay. On all of your departments?
On all of the departments, I do budget for all of the positions, hoping for and working towards filling any of these vacancies. And even, well, for instance, in the last fiscal year, since those vacancies were there, and I needed the money to fund Sauter-Miller, we had to do transfers out of that line item. But we do plan for, and hope for, and pray for qualified, capable, and certified staff to fill those positions.
So how long do you project using Sauter-Miller?
Counselor, I cannot give you a good projection. I can tell you that if I was to start somebody from scratch, it would be a minimum 6 years before they could get the certifications required. But separate from the certifications is the capabilities. I need staff members who respond at 2 o'clock in the morning, can think clearly, can see, hear, and smell what's going on with the plant and be able to make the right decisions. So it takes experience as well as certifications. So we're looking for a 2-tiered employee. We're not just looking from within. I would love to fill from within, but we have been reaching out. I serve on the Utility Operator Certification Board, and so I do reach out to them to post our positions statewide. So we're reaching out where we can.
Question?
Thank you. My line of questioning is kind of along the same lines. So we have $350,000 budgeted for Sauter-Miller.
Yes, ma'am.
Let's say that by some wonderful happenstance we do find people to fill those positions and they come ready to go with experience and certification and everything. How is that going to work with a contract that we have with Sauter-Miller? So if we get somebody in, do we remove a Sauter-Miller person and lower that contract amount, or how does that work?
Well, what we have is one Sauter-Miller person with their support staff, so we're really hiring the company. We do have one person at each facility. As the taskings can be handled within city staff capabilities, those will not be expected to be handled by Sauter-Miller. There will need to be a transition period, just as if it was a manager there. As I bring in, if I can bring in, and my goal is to bring in somebody who is capable of managing the plant, most likely the ideal way we'd bring them in the operator 4 position, which is directly below the manager's position, give them the time to transition, understand the plant, learn the plant. and phase out Sauter Miller and phase in our management. Unless I can get somebody who's absolutely 100% already experienced with a plant like ours and can come straight in, then I believe it's a 30-day notice to Sauter Miller for terminating the contract.
Okay. So then if we don't, if we're not fortunate enough to find those qualified people, then that $350,000 expenditure would be recurring expense to the city?
Yes, Councilor, and it's currently an estimate because I don't have a good feel yet. There was a large, there was a serious inspection of our plants at the very beginning, so there were a lot of hours that Sauter Miller put in to get a lot of things that were failing right back in a position of operations. That's slowing down now. We're starting to get into much more of a routine, so I'll be able to do a better estimate of what the monthly costs are going to be for the city from Sauter Miller. And we do try and have Sauter Miller do the guidance and our employees do all the work. So if they can call from Santa Fe and give them a reminder, then it saves us some money. But per state regulations, I have to have the appropriate certified competent person available. I believe that it's called, not, on-site is the terminology used, although the definition is not going to be, you physically have to be standing there. They're going to be the ones held accountable for the decisions made and the actions that the staff do. So they need to be close enough to be able to make any changes necessary.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Howell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. What is the hourly rate for a Sauter Miller support staff
That
we're using?
That's going to range because if a low-end employee, a laborer type employee is needed, it's going to be on the lower end of the pay scale. When it's the management services that are provided, we do pay the manager.
But we're not using Sauter Miller to do a lower test job.
They are not holding any of the city's positions, but we hired Sauter Miller as an entity. So if we have to bring somebody in, they will bring in the appropriate person at the appropriate pay scale to do the work. I'm not going to be paying the manager to change out a light bulb on a UV. I would prefer our staff do it, but if our staff aren't capable or available to do it, then Sauter Miller as a company is supporting us.
Okay. So what are we advertising as the pay rate for, if we are advertising for a level 4 operator, an experienced level 4 operator, what is the hourly rate for them that you're advertising?
Roughly off the top of my head, without looking at the pay scale, but looking at our S1, you're looking probably at about $20 starting for a senior position, an operator level 4 or a systems manager.
Okay, and what is you don't know what the rate is for a Sauter Miller level 4 operator experience?
Well, Counselor, I could tell you that a level 1 non-certified employee gets paid $19 an hour by Sauter Miller.
Okay, so level 1 is 19, and then an experienced level 4
is $1 more for the city.
Why is it so low?
Because it's private industry will always pay their employees more. We're a municipality.
Yeah, but if we're having such struggles and challenges in recruiting a level 4 operator, I think we need to really recognize the pay rate issue.
But I believe that is recognized during the actual interview based on the qualifications, correct?
Correct, Mayor. And so, Counselor, when I say $20 an hour, that's a step 1, year 1 of a manager. If they come in with 5, 10, 15 years of experience, they do move up on the pay scale. So then you're talking $24, $25 an hour. And I am looking into it to compare it to other communities and other cities to see what other cities and communities. We're not the only ones in this situation. As a matter of fact, almost every municipality is short on staff and short on senior experienced staff. What seemed to happen across the New Mexico is the senior, most experienced people all retired, got to retirement age, and because of PERA's restrictions, they can't work anywhere else other than private industry. So they've all retired from municipalities and gone to private industry. I know the legislature put that before them this last year to have police and water and wastewater operators, I don't know if it's proper terminology, exempt from the PERA rules. I don't think that went anywhere with the legislature, but I've been contacted by retired operators, but as long as we're PERA, they can't work for us without impacting the retirement.
Thank you.
Thank you. Question? Okay, thank you very much. Continue.
The next one after wastewater is going to be gas. And gas's revenues, I budgeted about the same as 2019 in the revenues. Preferred to budget revenues a little bit less, hoping and expecting more. I haven't got the weather report yet for next year. We do try and keep an eye out on the Farmer's Almanac and see if we're going to get some snow and some cold weather. We did seem to get a lot more cold weather after March after this year.
Weather, yeah.
So revenues, I'm budgeting, I'm anticipating about the same. Salaries, I looked back, I couldn't understand why we budgeted $431,000 last year. I think that I might have made a mistake there. We're staying pretty consistent with the year before, and it does match budgeting for all current positions with gas. So the actual total expenditure is roughly the same. And in gas, I am vacant 5 positions. And then water. Oh, solid waste, sorry. Solid waste is next. Solid waste, we are budgeting for an increase in tipping fees. Waste management, or GGI is going to be charging us a little bit more. We do expect that if we have to go down to Rio Rancho, that'll cost us. We had some heavy winds today and yesterday, and it impacted our ability to dispose of trash. But the winds were so strong we couldn't even go down south. But when we do have that option, it will cost us a little bit more to go to Rio Rancho. There is one line that I'm going to work with Tana on. It is under the recycling maintenance of road equipment. I don't know how we ended up with that. $241,000 for maintenance of recycling road equipment is not going to be accurate. That's about what we need for solid waste as a whole, or at least. But
Small equipment repair. I don't know, I might have added an extra zero.
So we're going to get recycling bins then. Yay! You heard that, guys?
What's the number on that?
As the city manager pointed out, this is a plan.
The number?
610-7408 in the recycling.
7408.
Yeah, 630 under recycling.
Under recycling. I probably added an extra zero.
I appreciate the additional funds.
It's very generous to you, Tom.
I'm sure we can make use out of it. So that will actually make the total expenditure budget a little bit closer to last year's.
No.
Can we change it right now?
There's
That would
about
take care of
5,000,
our
just do
bins.
5,000 for last year. I don't see us increasing it much. So
There you go.
150,000 instead of 400,000. So we already reduced our budget, thank you.
But
good job.
Rethink the recycling bins. Come on.
Absolutely, Counselor. We do have the recycling bins. It's a recycling program that we need to get moving in a way that's cost effective and beneficial. It can be beneficial on one end where we're collecting the recycling, and then detrimental on another end where the customers are paying for something that they're not getting a good return on financially, although they may be getting a good return environmentally. As well as I need to go out and look at the cans because the ones we seem to have don't fit our vehicles. So I need to figure out how we're going to address that, buy new cans or buy a new vehicle. Whatever's going to be less expensive and a longer term solution.
We've been waiting for a long time.
I know, Counselor. We all would love for it to be a lot easier than it is, but I also don't want to waste our constituents' money or something that we don't have a good plan. We need to have a good plan and not just jump in blind. Because I don't want to keep committing to you on something when I don't know the answer, such as Hannah Park. I don't want to commit to that until I have an answer.
Yeah.
But we will keep working on the recycling, absolutely. And KAB, with this last cleanup, we're getting big recognition from Washington DC and our KAB program, and so we're looking forward to that continuing to advance and finding other ways, in addition to improving our recycling program, to help improve our community, beautify our community. And 5 vacancies in solid waste.
One more question. What are we doing with all of our vacancy projected dollars? If we don't fill them
We're hoping to fill them.
every month, I know we're hoping to fill them, but if we don't fill them, what are we doing with the projected dollars? Are we going to reissue them or put it in recycling bins or?
Cash balance, it increases our cash balance because we're not expending the money. And unfortunately, we would prefer to have employees on staff.
Sure.
You know, than not, because those that we do have to put in extra time and effort. And but the monies just stay with the fund. And let's see, she had a major malfunction of equipment and she needed monies. I could easily move, and the monies weren't being spent in the salary position. I could move it to address that budget without coming to mayor and council and asking for a budget increase.
That's what I was asking.
Yes.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, we are at liberty. Those decisions have to be made sometimes, and the monies can be used in another line item as needed.
Right. Okay.
Okay, let's continue. Any other questions?
And then our water fund, and in the water fund, it is divided into distribution and treatment. There's revenues, and then the 2 expenditure groups are distribution and treatment. And with distribution, we did go back and review the FTE. Last year was the first year that we divided it up, so it was a little bit of a lesson. What expenses had we been paying for in previous years that were all coming out of the same line item, where some was from water distribution and some was from water treatment. So last year was the first year where we did a separate budget for each one, so we could start calculating it. So we have a much better idea of this year what each one of the line items is supposed to be, such as FTE, everybody divided up, expenditures for office supplies, fuel, vehicles, everything. The big one is the utilities, the water, the sewer, the gas. We did try and estimate. And this year we have a much better understanding of what water treatment plant uses to complete their taskings and what distribution uses, funding-wise, to complete their taskings. Let me see. On that one, the big one will probably be the 646, which is our upcoming water projects. And I am short 9 employees in distribution and 5 in treatment.
I have to ask, why are we not advertising and getting those positions filled?
Mayor, I just spoke with HR this morning. I have in my division, I think I have about 15 positions posted with HR. And they are as busy as all of us, and as soon as they get the applications in, they can do the review process and they get them over to us. We're just getting one here and one there, and they're unqualified. I had some people post for or apply for the manager position that had 0 experience. They didn't even bother to look at the requirements, they just applied. So there are a lot of applicants that go through HR that are just not even qualified.
That's good.
There was one concern that they came to me. They applied for a position in the wastewater, and it's been about a month, and they've done everything. I guess they're just waiting on the drug test, but it's...
So, Counselor, that employee actually started today, or yesterday. Sorry, they started yesterday. The process, that employee specifically was going for a CDL position where they were going to do a lot of driving, so they have to go through the DOT program. It was a little different than other applicants. But when there is a whole process with HR, They review them, they make sure that there are no issues or concerns and that they meet the requirements, and then they send them over to the department where the department staff that would be interacting, whether it's water, wastewater, solid waste, those staff members will review, that manager's division will review the applications to make sure that from the actual field experience, they have what we need. HR can see it from one side, but the actual field technicians look at it a little differently to see if that person has the experience, the capability, and the certifications to do the job. After that, then it goes back for scheduling of interviews. So it is a process to make sure that we're not hiring and then having to terminate because they can't meet the requirements. So it does take time, but once they get in, as long as they do their job, they're highly appreciated. And
getting ready to apply someone else.
yeah, he was calling me almost every day as well. So, but he started. He started yesterday.
Good.
And then the 646. Yes. Sorry.
How many vacancies does HR have? I mean, if they're struggling,
One.
just one. I just said they were busy like everybody else. That they can't, they can't just cater to me and give me all my applications as quick as I would like them, but they do go through them as quick as they can. It's just a process. And then the last one I wanted to talk about was the 646. We are finishing up some projects. Bradner is.
I have to ask a question.
Sorry. Yes, ma'am.
Have you been talking to Councilor Romero about that individual that got hired?
No, I didn't know about it until he mentioned it, but I knew who he was talking about because that employee had been calling me a lot. But no, I had not spoken to Councilor Romero about him at all. So we.
646.
Oh, 646. So yes, the revenues have been reduced a little bit because we don't have as much funding this year as we did last year, I think.
Well, you've completed a lot of
because of the Bradner, the big one being the Bradner. The one that's not on here yet is we did get our $400,000 our letter from the capital outlay regarding the $400,000. Oh, so you did that. Good. So we got that letter, so we'll start with the process of doing the resolutions related to encumbering those funds. Bradner is done. Kevin Site Tank is done. So many of our big projects that were funded are completed. We are finishing some smaller projects. The 8th Street and the Chico, or it's not actually Chico, but the 8th Street and the hospital field project is nearing completion. They're working on the 8th Street side now. Grand Avenue is nearing completion. Actually, that one is completed. I think we have a little additional funding, and Finance Authority wants us to spend the money. So we're trying to find projects that correlate with that funding to be able and get it approved by NMFA so that we can spend the final amounts of the grant and loan. Upcoming projects for this year, Peterson Dam is high on the list. We do have the task order from the engineer. We're reviewing it. Hopefully, we bring it before council. We continue with the leak detection. We're finishing up leak detection this fiscal year. I did budget for it next year just in case it rolled over into next year. But that fund, that $100,000 may not be expended if we can finish it up this year. Let's see. A water treatment plant security system. In October of 2018, Congress passed the American Water Infrastructure Act, which puts a requirement on the Environment Department and then subsequently communities to make a lot of improvements to their water systems. Security is always one of them that we have to look at. Treatment is another one, and CCR. Every year we've been putting out a CCR Consumer Competence Report. Congress, through the Act, is making a change to the Safe Drinking Water Act, requiring we do them twice a year instead of once a year. We're currently waiting for EPA to give us direction. We can't do anything until they tell us how to follow through with it. We are budgeting for doing 2 CCRs instead of 1. Another thing that we're working on is through that act, they're requiring us to do an emergency response plan, which is any kind of risk or hazard to our water treatment facility. So we're doing that. We're going to do a risk assessment, We'll look at our previous vulnerability studies, and then we will do an updated emergency response plan. Again, these are required by Congress through the EPA, and they've not promulgated the specifics of that one either, but we do know it's coming, and we are going to have a time frame that we're going to have to meet. So we are working on that. So we do keep those in our budget, in our ideas, in our minds, and so we have some money in the water treatment plant security system line item. Hot springs is something we're also working towards with Public Works, and the water line repairs that were presented to the capital outlay, to the legislature include North Gonzales water line. They're not funded in here yet, are they? So that's why they don't show up.
They wouldn't show up in here, they show up in in our Fund 217.
Okay. So we did create line items for each one of the water lines we know we need to have repaired or replaced, but they're unfunded right now until we can find the funds for them. But I wanted to go ahead and put them in this year's budget, but they were zeroed. So it's North Gonzales, 7th Street.
North Gonzales is on line 139.
Right, North Gonzales is actually funded in here. The other ones, we gave them a $0 amount. PRVs, our PRVs are aging, and those are what control the pressures between the zones. And if the pressures increase, it can impact the lower zones. So we have a PRV project as well. Columbia, Tobacco, New Mexico, the New Mexico water line, and west of New Mexico. So we have several projects that we're planning, and then we're going to work towards funding, but we wanted to go ahead and get them in the budget, but they're $0 amount, $0 right now. And the SCADA system, the PRV is here and the SCADA system is here.
Oh, you did, this paving entry. You didn't forget that one.
And that's
That's
the
it?
646.
Okay, thank you very much. Questions, comments?
Just a comment.
No, go ahead.
Maria, with yours, you have 7 divisions that you're over, correct?
Yes, Council.
Do you have an assistant director? I mean, my God, that's a lot of responsibilities that you have.
I have really good managers, Counselor. My managers run their divisions, and they report to me, and I give them all the tools that I can give them for them to get their jobs done.
Okay, good, because it seems like you're pulling hairs out sometimes.
I have a lot to pull out.
It looked like you were trying to put them back in there.
A minute there.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Let's move on.
Are there any other questions on any other department?
I don't have any.
Just one last, just a comment. The property tax in general fund, there's a decrease in property tax?
Yes.
When the note said that we have an increase?
Pardon?
When your note under the...
Oh, that,
sorry, is that mine or yours?
That's mine.
Didn't clean it up, okay.
It's the topics issues note?
Disregard, please.
Disregarded.
I've been keeping a close eye on the property tax collections, and it hasn't quite come in at the levels we had budgeted. We're actually down about 100,000, and I think Councilor Casey asked me about that property tax at the last council meeting. So I'm just being real conservative now on the preliminary, and just ensuring that we have enough revenues to fund the expenditures that we're proposing. And then once we get some actual dollar figures in January for June, and start preparing our final budget, then that'll give us a better idea as to where how much we should fund or budget for, I'm sorry.
No. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
One last comment, another comment. And this is most likely to you, Mayor. The golf course, New Mexico Islands Golf Course. I don't know if you've had conversations with them.
Actually, go ahead.
And they're, they have a task force that they started. And I was informed that they only have, the regents are telling the task force that they only have about, I think 6 to 8 months left on spending dollars on the golf course. And if they don't find a solution to help out, then they're going to have to close the golf course down. And they're asking to see how we can be part of the solution. And I don't know if you've had that conversation.
Actually, I'd be very honest with you, I'm very disappointed with President Minner. He came here to the city and made a proposal that the city should help them. I have asked him on at least 3 or 4 occasions to set up a meeting with me and Anne Marie. He has done none of the sort. And during a meeting that I had in at Highlands, I ran into both President Minner and Max Baca, and I again confronted President Minner, and I want this on the record somewhere, so he knows that I am calling him out. If he's going to come to the city and call us out on helping him with funding, then he has to also be called out on being non-responsive to his own needs, okay? So after that happened, I ran into him again, and I said, President Minner, when are you going to set up a meeting? And he said, I'll be calling. And that's been pretty much the response for 3 or 4 discussions that I've run into him already. And Max Baca actually was bold enough to make a statement, and he said, well, what we need from the city is free water. And I says, wow. Well, that's a tall order, considering that every constituent in the city is paying for their water, and you're asking for free water. I said, I don't believe we can do that, I said, and President Minner, again, I'd like to set up a meeting with you, and again, he stated, I'll be calling, and that was it. Hasn't called this day, so the ball's in his court, Councilor Howell.
I understand that, but we have to understand that the constituents in our community love the golf course. They love to golf.
Actually,
So
we have
need
very
to-
few constituents in the community that participate in the golf course, and that's different than when Mr. Torres had the golf course programs going for the children. And I can assure you, because my children were participating, a lot of them couldn't afford the golf clubs, and they're very expensive. One golf club would cost $150. So there's very little participation in the golf course except for some adults, and it's a small group of adults. You're looking at 15 to 20 people.
I would really like to see us sitting at a table to discussing all
Well,
this.
President Minner, the ball's on his court. I've already stated this to you, Councilor Howell. Let him set up the meeting, and we will discuss.
So if I could work with him to set up the
Well,
meeting?
he has to work with us. He has to call either
Right.
my office or Anne Marie's
Well, he
office,
will.
and we will set up the meeting.
Okay.
He and I. Okay?
Would you like to meet with the task force?
No, I don't. I want to sit down with President Minner. He's the one that requested the meeting. Let him set up the meeting. I've already talked to him 4 times. There's no excuse for him, and I'm not going to make any here today. Okay, any other business?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. That concludes our budget hearing for today. What we'll be doing is submitting the preliminary budget by May 31st, I believe, is the deadline to do that. Then we'll bring the final budget back to you with some of the recommendations that have been made by Mayor and Council, and we will bring those back to you in July with our final budget, final resolution, and our final expenditure report for your review and hopefully approval.
Okay.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is public input, and we have Mr. John Spencer. Thank you, Mr. Spencer, for being so patient. I know. Thank you for being so patient. Thank you, Tana.
Well, I had this presentation that took exactly 2 minutes and 37 seconds.
I'm sorry, I was hoping we should have amended the agenda
this afternoon.
to put public input in first.
And so I could shorten it up a good bit. We were pleading for a line item for forest, what we call hazard mitigation and forest renewal. And through the good offices we've heard today, there's 10K in the budget.
And we had, like I say, we've been listening to you. We had included this since last year. So we have
Well,
not
let me give you good reasons to be happy you did. And
Thank you.
the main thing is for you to think about, you're the first set of council that's ever actually thought about leaving a legacy of trees for this city.
Exactly.
And that's wonderful.
Yes.
We're very, very pleased. And there's lots and lots of things that we can talk about. We've had some pretty good lessons this year on needing to get after this problem. And we thank you for thinking about it. There are some wrinkles that we can talk about as we go along. But one of the big advantages we're going to get is that we have actual proof now that the city is kicking in. They're bought into the game. And that's going to make a huge difference when we're trying to get grant money. Because the city's been very good to us really all along. They've done yeoman's work in matching through when we go for matching funds. But now we can say, take a look at the budget. They've signed up. And so pleased to see this happen, and we're proud of you. Thank you very much.
And I have to thank Anne Marie and also have to thank Tana because we've discussed this for the last 2 years, and finally last year we were able to get that money and put it in the line item for this year.
We're really, really quite pleased. And on the back of the handout are memos from Christy and Adrian Jaramillo, the safety officer.
Exactly.
That support the position. And basically what we're about, there's kind of 3 things to protect the citizens of the city, provide safe environment for them to be in. That's called hazard mitigation. To preserve the legacy of trees, which you already have. We've got a bunch that are in poor condition, but they can be, we can elongate their lives by doing remedial pruning, so we can keep going, maintain what we've got, and we can make them last longer. But that's remedial pruning and things like that. But the thing that we need to really think about most is providing for the future of the city. And that's forest renewal. And so Christie's been very good. He says, I can do the low pruning, I can do the removals, we can plant. We'll have to talk about the high pruning, because there's going to be some of that too, and that's probably best done by outside people. But the really important thing is to have a line item in the budget that recognizes the problem and begins to address it. It makes a huge difference. We've been talking well, we got a flag says we've been talking to you for 20 years. And here it comes. And thank you very much. That's all.
Thank you for your
much, and
patience,
thanks for the work that you
Mr.
do.
Spencer. The next person is Mr. Emilio Aragon. Thank you, Mr. Spencer.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor.
Good afternoon, Mr.
Council. I submitted a letter yesterday to our current attorney, and it's entitled Appropriated Monies from Proceeds of Sale of Citizen Property. The City of Las Vegas was complicit in appropriating the proceeds from the sale of my property at 1022 Douglas in 2014. The previous administration, City Council, and Utilities Department did collude by their lack of due diligence and or due process. Actually, there was a little bit of malfeasance. They took $19,781.50 from the proceeds of those sales. Additionally, these city entities violated city ordinance and its own waiver of landlord responsibility. Additionally, they violated the Las Vegas, New Mexico City Ordinance, which states that a lien shall be filed after 6 months of delinquency, yet I was billed for tenant arrears from 1984. This is 2014. No prior notice to me. This was tenants, right? Students, a lot of them. To date, the city's utilities department refuses or otherwise fails to provide the ledger of account of the monies gotten by the city in the illegal appropriation of the proceeds of the sale of my rental properties. The utilities department even then transferred the money owed by previous tenants onto my current and existing account at 200 Washington Street. They continue to send me 2 bills under the same account number. Every month, 2 bills. One, in this case, is for $524, and the other one is for $648. Why? Under the same account number. And city was billing tenants even 5 months after they appropriated my money. The city was double dipping. I hereby request the monies appropriated be returned to me, the undersigned. Please include $6,000 for attorney fees, plus $3,000 in costs incurred and penalty and interest, added to the $19,781.50. Then Attorney David Romero stonewalled my attorneys' repeated efforts to acquire public records, accounting records, or city copy of my waiver of landlord responsibility form, and a copy of City of Las Vegas City Ordinance, etc.
3 minutes.
Said stonewalling cost me extra money, and by mutual agreement, me and my first attorney parted ways. Couldn't afford the extra letters and phone calls that he wouldn't answer. Attorney David Romero and City Clerk Cassandra Fresquez conducted ex parte conferences witnessed by the magistrate court clerks with a presiding judge to overturn her ruling in which she awarded me $9,600. The magistrate limit of award is $10,000. She overturned it after a half-hour meeting with David Romero and Ms. Cassandra Fresquez. I'm demanding my money back. This is not my bill. This was a tenant's, and I still have my copy of the waiver of landlord responsibility. What is that for? Why do we sign that? Notarize it, submit it to the city. For what?
Okay.
$19,000, that's a pretty good chunk out of my retirement.
Thank you very much, Mr. Aragon. I will look into it.
I submitted it to the attorney, to the city attorney, and I hope I get some kind of response.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Aragon.
Thank
Thank you very much.
The
Any
next
other-
item on the agenda, Madam Mayor, members of the council, Madam Attorney, do we have reason to go into executive session?
We do have one matter to discuss. We've been here for about 3.5 hours. If that's the wishes of the council to go into executive session, I do have one matter regarding pending litigation.
Okay, do I have a motion? Do I need a motion to, does anybody want to make a motion to go into executive session?
Can we have more
Yeah.
detail as to
Yeah, she'll tell.
what it is?
Pending litigation regarding Dave Romero.
Okay.
Attorney David.
Yeah, yes. Do we have a motion?
Madam Mayor?
Councilor Casey?
I move that we go into executive session for the purpose of discussing attorney-client privilege information pertaining to threatened or pending litigation regarding former city attorney David Romero, in which the city of Las Vegas is a participant as permitted by section 10-15-1H7 of the New Mexico Open Meetings Act, NMSA 1978.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Roll call.
Counselor Yulabreed Jr.?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
Counselor Howell?
Yes.
Counselor Casey?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Casey and a second by Counselor Howell. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
It looks like everybody's synchronized this meeting.
All right. Turn off. It's just easier to show them. all for being here today.
Happy Memorial Day and happy graduation.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you all for doing a great job today.